Hello and welcome to Purely Academic, your potentially educational podcast. This is the monthly stuff for June 2026. I'm Dr. Jonathan Lack. I write about movies. I teach cinema studies at the University of Colorado. And I am excited to announce that we, like the video game industry, will be releasing the rest of our year's podcasts exclusively in the month of September.
And I'm Sean Chapman, high school English teacher by day, otaku by night. And similarly, I'm just going to pack all of my lessons for the 26 to 27 school year in September because I guess that's just how we do things now.
Yeah, if you can't tell, today's episode is about video game news because we are in the middle of Not-E3 2026. I guess it's basically over, but we just had the Xbox Game Showcase. We are literally recording this minutes after it concluded, so if anything else has broken, we don't know about it. We're recording it right after that finished on Sunday. We also had the Sony State of Play this week. We had the Jeff Keighley Summer Game Fest, and we had a bunch of other just random bits and pieces of news over the last couple of weeks that we want to go into. So I would say the main topic of this episode is video game news. We'll talk about a couple other little things at the end. We've got some stuff. We've got a very fun monthly 10. Sean challenged me to come up with ideas for Star Wars movies that Lucasfilm could announce and then cancel. And I went pretty hard on this one, Sean. I'm just going to say right now.
Well, I'm very, very excited for that one.
All right. So anyway, that's what we're doing today. We had a lot of video game news. Some stuff I'm excited for, some stuff I don't care about. It's been an exhausting Not-E3 2026.
Yes, I will say I've enjoyed with this Not-E3 2026. I did not watch any of this shit live in real time because if they're not going to do it live on a stage, I ain't going to watch it live. Like Nintendo was smart with their Nintendo Direct format, but at this point, now that we've been doing this shit and everyone's been doing it for like 8 to 10 years, I can't watch these things anymore. Like, if there's not a situation where like there's a motherfucker driving a car up onto a stage that they rented in Los Angeles, or there's like an interpretive dance group in the background while someone's playing a video game live, I don't fucking care. I can't watch them anymore.
So I did watch the State of Play and the Xbox Showcase. I did it this one because someone had to take notes on it. And I don't know why I did. I hate these things. And here's the thing. I do watch the Nintendo Direct every time there's one of those. And I do wish, like, everyone is at once aping the Nintendo Direct format and not learning any of the right lessons from it. Because the thing about the Nintendo Directs is they're usually under an hour long. They have a much better pace. They like break things up with like, here's a big trailer and gameplay look, and then here's a bunch of little ones. And then here's a big look and here's a bunch of little ones. It's not, and they have people come out and talk, and they have like other stuff going on. It is not just 90 solid minutes of ads that you would just see on TV if you're watching commercials. I really wish these other companies would get their shit together and learn some of this. Like, I thought the Xbox Showcase it's exactly what it always is, and I found it very boring. The Sony State of Play had a little bit more of that variation. I also thought it made some weird decisions, like the way they chose to show off the new God of War. So I don't know. I thought the State of Play was better, but man, I hate these things. I don't know why I do this.
Yeah, I can't bother. I mean, you're right. The Nintendo still does it better than anybody else, but it's still just a format that I'm so exhausted of. I mean, I think if there's one thing that every company should learn from Nintendo, is that you should announce your games as the title of video game for the name of system. You know, because if Xbox had, I don't know, Asha Sharma up there and saying, and we're happy to announce the Gears of War Emergence Day video game for the Xbox Series X system and the Xbox Series S system and the Windows PC system, exclusively on Xbox and Windows PC, I think that would make everyone very happy.
It would be amusing in between all the incompetence, which I have to say, I think that Xbox Showcase was a display of spectacular incompetence, but we'll get to that later. Let's kick off with the news that this is stuff that didn't come out at any of the shows. One of these news items is a bit older than the others, but we haven't had a podcast since then. But let's kick off with one of the big pieces of gaming news of the moment, which is that Bungie has announced the end of active development of Destiny 2, with the upcoming June update, Monument of Triumph, serving as its final content update. The game will remain playable, so like its servers will still be up and serviced and that sort of basic stuff, but no new content is coming. Jason Schreier at Bloomberg did a report on this, reporting that Bungie is planning significant layoffs once this development is over. No project is lined up for the development team once work is done, and there are no plans for Destiny 3, which leaves their mildly successful PC-based extraction shooter Marathon is the main thing they're doing. It does not sound like Bungie has much of a future, but yeah, this is kind of brutal news. I mean, Destiny, Sean, that goes back to some of the earliest days of the Weekly Stuff podcast, was us reporting on the beginnings of Destiny. We were there for the alpha of Destiny 1, when Peter Dinklage was still saying, that wizard came from the moon. We heard that meme in real time.
Yes.
And here we are at the end of Destiny 2, a game that has shed almost everyone who's ever played it, now that it's crawling over the finish line. I feel bad for Bungie. I think they're on their way out.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I mean, I don't think I've ever been frustrated by a game as much as I have Destiny, because I do love that game. You know, as you say, like, you know, we played like the alpha, and then there was the beta, and then there was the full game, which at the time you didn't expect, like, the full game, that the alpha and beta were like 40% of the content that the full game had. You know, Destiny always has been just like a kind of a rocky game with a weird set of issues around like a central core that was always really amazing. And obviously it was a game that was really cutting edge for when it came out, because it is a live service game. Like, I think it's easy to forget that Destiny 1 also launched on the Xbox 360 and the PS3, that they had versions of them on that console until their second huge DLC pack, at which point they dropped the older versions. But that's how long Destiny has been around. It's like predates the current model of the live service game. And it's kind of always been the thing that's been frustrating, is it felt like they never really figured that out. And Destiny 2 was such an awesome game, and it just became a game that was impossible to play and keep up with. Every time after Forsaken, which was their first really big DLC that I thought was great, everything after that I just found impenetrable to come back to. They like made so many weird decisions. Obviously, the biggest one being the basically unprecedented decision of what they called the quote-unquote vaulting the content, which at this point, I think the word vault was a generous word to use as opposed to just cutting the content out of the game. Vault implied that, like, at some point it was going to come back. Clearly, that's never going to happen. But they got, you know, they cut all the original Destiny 2 campaign content out of the game, which just made the game impossible to come back to. If you wanted to, like, for me, something I liked doing in the original Destiny, I liked, like, a year after that game was out, I made a new character and played the campaign from the beginning, and like was fun to be like, oh, what's it like playing a Titan, and re-experience the story and stuff like that. You couldn't do that with Destiny 2. And so you
could have a disc, a PS4 disc, where all the data on it was no longer playable, but you had to use it to play Destiny 2 if that's how you had it. Like, it's just an insane decision when you think about it.
Yeah, and obviously it's just the game always had a lot of technical issues in the background. Like, this is just stuff we know, particularly from Jason Schreier reporting on Destiny in the past, of just how, you know, poor their tools were for this sort of game, which is somewhat forgivable because, again, it is like one of the first ones of these that is this kind of like, it's not really an MMO. It, you know, like the people were comparing it to World of Warcraft. That's how old Destiny was. That was like the frame of reference. It wasn't Roblox or Fortnite or anything like that. But I do definitely like am just bummed out by what Destiny has kind of ended up being. Especially as someone who has gotten, you know, like very, very deep in the weeds with Genshin Impact. It's just, I always kind of in the back of my head every once in a while I think about, God, what if Destiny had made some of the design choices of like how to manage a live service game that Genshin did, and how incredible would that game be, and I would still be playing it every day to this day. But I just, even as someone who was a really diehard, like dyed-in-the-wool Destiny fan for years, like I just couldn't keep up with it anymore, and that was years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Like I stopped playing around the launch of the PS5 was the last time I tried to get back into it with the PS5 updated version of it. And I just couldn't get into the game. I had no idea what I was doing. They loaded me into some mission that I didn't know what the fuck the mission was. All of the gear on my character was like no longer leveled up or whatever. Like they had changed the leveling curve for everything. I think they had done the thing that happens with these kinds of games where they reset skill tree type content, and so you come back to your like, none of my skills are the same, or I have to reassign all of them, but you also don't let me just load up into the tower and like go into a zone and just play around for 20 minutes to re-find my feet. You just have loaded me into a random story mission. Like, what the fuck is happening? And I just couldn't play it anymore. And I'm just really bummed about what Destiny 2 has ended up as.
Yeah. And I remember the exact same thing, Sean, of it was, I think it was the same for me, was when they had the PS5 update, and, it was an incredible update. Technically, that game was always a stunner to look at and to play and everything. And, a game that kind of led the way in the revival of, like, no, these kinds of games have to be 60 FPS on console. I remember that, like, on the PS4 and stuff like that, just, like, getting all of that. Or, no, it was 30. Never mind. I'm wrong about that. It was the PS5
was the first time the console was 60 FPS.
Never mind. Okay, I have false memories of that then. No, that was a weird decision then. Why was that? Okay. Anyway, but it was still a technically stunning game. It had all of Bungie's art design and all of that stuff, the sound design, all of that, great stuff. But no, it's been so long. It's an impossible game to get back into. It's a bummer. But what do you make of no interest in continuing it? I think that's fascinating. That, like, Sony clearly, maybe there is internal desire to do more with Destiny, but, like, that support is not there. And there's no indication of what Bungie is to Sony going forward, because, look, Marathon might be a minor success, but Sony did not buy Bungie to have an extraction shooter that is mostly played on Steam. Right. That's not why they own that company.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of understand why you would not, for a whole host of reasons, not, like, just go straight into a Destiny 3. One, because Destiny 2 is not going out at a swell, So it's like, I think it's part of the problem with these sort of live service games is that, people don't make sequels of them. Like, sequels to these games don't exist. People just, like, they made technically, quote unquote, in Overwatch 2. That's not Overwatch 2. That was a big update for Overwatch, right? And that was, like, the last time I can think of that people really tried something like that. And so I do think the problem with these live service games is that people burn out on it. And so the notion of spending what would be a huge amount of money and time to make a third Destiny game, and you have no idea, is the audience going to be there for that? Like, I would be very interested in seeing a Destiny 3, but I also don't have to sign off on the financial decision of doing that. And we know that Bungie has just been a studio that has been plagued by a lot of disastrous management for years at the top of that company. And so, they have been in a very poor state for a very long time. And again, Destiny 2 has just kind of, like, gone out with a whimper and not a bang. And so I don't know what happens with Bungie going forward. Like, I hope they don't just shutter the studio entirely. I think you're guaranteed that there's going to be huge layoffs. But I mean, who knows? I can't even, like, predict what's going to happen.
Yeah. It would not surprise me if they get shuttered. Given everything that has happened, given the fact that there's no project lined up, and their main thing is Marathon, and again, I respect everyone who says Marathon is great, and it is definitely, like, a success, but in a space that Sony is not, that, again, they did not buy Bungie to have an extraction shooter that is mainly played on PCs.
Yeah,
right?
And also the guy who signed off on the Bungie deal, Jim Ryan, is also not the head of PlayStation anymore.
Yes.
So it's like, the other thing is that this is a whole project and a whole, like, thing that is from a previous PlayStation regime. So I think that also, like, adds a complicated, like, there's no, like Sony is just clearly, their strategies around live service games and all that stuff has shifted dramatically since the Bungie purchase, which happened in a moment of madness during the pandemic.
Well, and I think right now Bungie would be most valuable to Sony as another studio making a big first-party exclusive for PlayStations that could be in the stable and be in the rotation, but Bungie has not made a game like that since Halo Reach in 2010. So, can they even do that anymore? Who knows? It's a different world.
Yeah, and nobody makes big single-player first-person shooters hardly anymore. Like, that is a very rare beast. I think that would be a fascinating thing if that is what happens, is they lean the studio down, turn it into a single-player focused project, and just make a big Bungie single-player FPS. Like, that would be fascinating. But who knows?
And it wouldn't necessarily have to be an FPS. It could be a moment for, like, transformation if there's something else they want to do. But, they also, Bungie is a weird beast. It's not like a smaller, tight-knit unit like a Guerrilla Games that had been working together for a long time and probably had been all thinking collectively of something like Horizon in the years they were working on the Killzone games, and then they're able to do this because most people who were there for Halo Reach are not there anymore. Bungie is just a different thing now, so who the hell knows what that studio is. All right, speaking of very big studios, CD Projekt Red announces a new DLC campaign for The Witcher 3, a game from 2015. It is called Songs of the Past, co-developed with Fool's Theory, coming 2027. Only to PS5, the Xbox Series consoles, and PC, not to the original versions of the game, which is fascinating. Like, that's a bold new step for, like, this kind of expansion, I think. And it is also not coming to the Nintendo Switch version, which makes me kind of sad. But there you go. Songs of the Past. It looks like, do you have the same read that this will be some kind of, like, prequel with a younger Geralt, is what it seemed like?
I don't know. I haven't actually looked at if there's like a trailer or anything. I don't know. It is just like kind of a crazy thing. Obviously, they're making that The Witcher 4, which they've shown a lot of that because they're doing it obviously in collaboration with NVIDIA in terms of the tech, and so they had some of that in like the Unreal Engine 5 demos that they've shown with Witcher 4. So I wouldn't be surprised if this has some sort of narrative hook that connects to that. That game is obviously starring Ciri. Instead of Geralt. But yeah, like this is a really fascinating thing. Obviously, if you owned the original versions of the games, you have the PS5 and Xbox Series ones, so it's not like you have to buy a new version of the game.
If you have that system, yeah.
Sure, yes, yeah. But yeah, if you bought the PS4 version of The Witcher 3 and you have not upgraded your console, I think probably you're not interested in playing the expansion of The Witcher 3. I have to imagine that is like, maybe there's one guy who's been holding on to that this whole time. It's like, it's the only game I want to play, and I haven't bought anything new, and I just really want new Witcher 3 content. I imagine anyone who's like even aware that this is coming out has got to be someone plugged in enough that they have upgraded to a more modern platform at some point in the intervening years. It is crazy. Like, it's just, this is not a thing that single player games get. Obviously, we're used to games from circa 2015 still being very relevant. Grand Theft Auto 5, which is much older than that at this point, like 3 or 4 years, or like 2 or 3 years older than that, is still one of the highest selling games every fucking year. But that's in the Grand Theft Auto online space, not in the Grand Theft Auto 5 campaign space. So there is something cool about just saying, fuck it. If everyone's still playing games that are 20 years old, and those are the most played games of the year, why can't our really successful game that's that old? Why can't we do that shit too? And I mean, I'm curious about it. I've been thinking about replaying The Witcher 3 for several years now because I would really love to revisit it. It's just such a beast. That's kind of an intimidating game to go back to, but this would be a good excuse to at least dip my toes into it and check out what the DLC is.
Yeah. I'm excited. Witcher 3 is great. I'm happy to play more Witcher 3. The way they've done the DLC for these two is you don't have to, like, start a new campaign and play they've done it effectively as you can play those DLCs as sequels to the game. So I think it'll be very playable. And I actually have not touched the PS5 version of Witcher 3. I do, as you say, I have it because I had the PS4 version, and I'm sure it's very impressive. The last version of Witcher 3 I played was the Nintendo Switch version, which I will defend as, I think, a good version of that game. But I am sure the PS5 version is very impressive. So I'm excited to look forward to it. And I was just looking up, and there was a Polish analyst last year saying that their leads was that this was viewed as like the kickoff of the Witcher 4, basically promotional season would be this DLC, which makes sense. So, do one more thing for Witcher 3, and then we'll get Witcher 4 eventually, and maybe viewing this as a last ride with Geralt, because Ciri will be the main character of Witcher 4, as we already know.
Yes. Yeah. Very interested to see more about that.
All right. Activision officially announced Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, although the 4 is a weird kind of symbol. Sean, you printed it here.
It's the Korean symbol for 4 because it's set in Korea.
Okay.
And if you squint and put it in a weird font, it looks like, our numeral for 4.
Yeah, it is. So this is the next Infinity Ward game. The campaign is going to be set partially in South Korea after an invasion by North Korea. Also the plot of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and I'm sure there will be just off the chart levels of cultural sensitivity in this game. It will not be offensive in any way to anybody.
I can only hope that it's like a prequel to Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and they have a young Kevin Spacey, because just to like ruin Call of Duty's reputation in certain circles even more. Lest we forget that Advanced Warfare is the one that had the dead-eyed fucking Kevin Spacey in it.
That was before we knew all the Kevin
people
Spacey
knew
stuff. Yeah,
Kevin Spacey was what we know Kevin Spacey to be, but it would be just very funny if they tied it into that game more tightly.
Anyway, this is going to be releasing on PS5, Xbox, PC, and for the first time, Nintendo Switch 2 day and date. That's cool. And it is the first year they are cutting off the PS4 and Xbox One consoles and are sunsetting that version of Warzone. So finally moving on there. You know, I'm looking forward to this because I do like the Modern Warfare games a lot. And I understand people who find these games as politics so repugnant that they do not play them. I, for one, find it kind of fucking hilarious when, like, Modern Warfare 2, the second Modern Warfare 2, had the story about terrorists coming over the Mexican border, and it's like the most Fox News fever swamp dream thing ever. And I don't know, I just kind of laugh along with that and then play the fun gunplay game. I'm glad this is coming to Switch 2. I assume it's going to run well because Call of Duty games scale really, really well. They always have. And, you know, I do pay for online on Switch. I do not pay for online on PS5, so I haven't played Call of Duty in a while, and I would like to play Call of Duty again. So there you go.
I am curious, like, what the sales for this will be like on Switch 2. Like, how much of a market is there for Call of Duty on Switch 2? Because I believe the last time Call of Duty was on Nintendo was Black Ops 2 for the Wii U.
On Wii U, yep.
So it has been a long time. Maybe there's just some Nintendo diehard who was like, I love that Black Ops 2, but not enough to ever buy anything other than Nintendo consoles. And I've just been playing it to this day on my old faithful Wii U. And finally, I can play a new one.
I mean, here's the thing. There's never been a Call of Duty game on a Nintendo console that was, like, comparable in power to the other systems. That's the problem. Is that you did have... They were regularly released on the Wii, and they were on the Wii U. But, you know, the Wii was very popular, but you couldn't play, you know, games on the Wii the way you could on your PS3 and Xbox 360, so they were downgrades. This will obviously be not as technically cutting edge as the others, but if they can get it running fine, like just acceptable as like a Call of Duty game, I see no reason why this wouldn't do well. I mean, we've seen, this is something you actually saw, I think, in the State of Play and in the Xbox Game Showcase and in the Summer Game Fest we're going to talk about. People are committing to the Switch 2 more. We've seen this. Like, it is getting more mainstream third-party support than the Switch 1 did because it is more powerful, obviously. And I suspect this will do well.
Yeah, I am amused by their, like, what global conflict have we not done in a while? Yes. Oh, we could do the Korea one. You know, I'm sure that they had, they sort of were sensing, we really can't go back to the Middle East with the next Call of Duty. We can't, like, that's a thing we don't want to do. Even for Call of Duty, there's a level of insensitivity that they're not willing to go to. And so
they're not willing to embed you with the IDF as they invade Lebanon or something. Okay.
Yeah, they don't want to touch Israel, Palestine, and now Iran. Like, it's just, they're not going to do that. So we're going to go to Korea. But I'm with you that, like, you have to have a level head about the U.S. imperialist propaganda that is the Call of Duty franchise. As is, like, all these, like, military action movies that are, that Call of Duty kind of pulls its inspiration from. But you can kind of, like, take that for what it is, for the kind of, as you say, almost the humor of the ridiculousness of it, and enjoy the game for the kind of the gameplay and that kind of stuff, and sort of laugh along at the madness of it.
I've seen leftists online reviving what used to be actually a liberal talking point, because this was like a Hillary Clinton thing, of video games causing violence around Call of Duty because you have, the Trump administration posting memes using Call of Duty stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I just roll my eye. I'm like, guys, Call of Duty did not give us Donald Trump. Call of Duty did not give us the current war in Iran. You can probably talk about around the margins, does this kind of, like, military propaganda video games soften our real world expectations for this kind of stuff? Yeah, but also, like, there are bigger fish to fry here, guys. Let's calm the fuck down. That's kind of my view on it.
Yeah, like, you're not being, like, noble in saying, I will not play the Call of Duty for, like, moral reasons. If you're not interested in the game, or you just find, like, the topic gross and you don't want to engage with it, that's fine. But the kind of, like, trying to take a more moral superior position by saying I will not play Call of Duty for those reasons is very silly.
If you're saying it because of like the BDS boycott of Microsoft, that's fine. I get that.
Yeah.
But that's a different thing that is not specific about any one game. That's about, and that's actually actual like money going to places that are bad things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. But Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, I'm very amused by their, like, we're going to use the Korean character for 4 and do our, like, weird font to kind of make it look like a 4. They're leaning into their bullshit. This is obviously the first proper Infinity Ward game since Modern Warfare 2. Obviously, technically, there was Modern Warfare 3 in there. But that, we don't talk about that one in terms of the campaign. They've got their, like, Captain Price is on a mission that's, he's going Jason Bourne. It's doing the dumb Call of Duty shit, but it is the dumb Call of Duty shit that I enjoy. Like, I've never been a big Black Ops guy. And so this is one that I am curious about. It also seems like they're doing a bigger technical overhaul a la the rebooted Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which is the last time we had, like, a big, kind of pushing the technical boundaries thing. So and these studios are obviously incredibly good at that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of stuff to look forward to. If there's anything I'm very disappointed by, though, it is that they have not taken this opportunity that we finally have a Modern Warfare 4. A game this is no reboot. We don't have to do the, like, put the year after it because we never had a Modern Warfare 4, but they didn't call it Modern Warfare. And
I know.
It's just, they had one shot and they fucking blew it. And I guess 15 years from now, when we have the remake, like reimagining of Modern Warfare 4, they can do another job at it. But it's going to be a while before we have another turn at bat on Modern Warfare.
Gears of War 4 wasn't called Gears of 4. God of War 4 wasn't called God of 4. It's all bullshit. This industry sucks, Sean, and that's the main reason why.
Exactly. If we just figured that shit out, the world would be a sunny place. Global warming would be resolved. Fascism would have been defeated. But no, we have to have not dumb titles in video games and actual, like, they're trying to make the title a serious title in video games. Stop. It's a video game. We're supposed to have fun with them. Have fun with the title, please.
Indeed. Speaking of having fun, here is the best gaming news we will have for you today, and I mean that absolutely unironically. The early 2000s classic GameCube brawler, Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, is returning with a remaster for PS5 and Nintendo Switch 2. It is launching November 3rd. They actually did, after I wrote this, they confirmed it's also on Xbox and PC. It will have an updated unlock system to get all your kaiju. It'll have online multiplayer so you can play with your friends, and a new single-player campaign for all of the kaiju. They haven't told us what that will be. Maybe it's just like a, Street Fighter style arcade mode or something, but that alone for each kaiju sounds fucking great. If you are too young to have experienced the majesty of Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, it honestly was my introduction to most of those characters, and I fucking loved this game. It kicked ass. It was fun to play at friends' houses. I am super stoked for this. This game fucking slaps.
Yeah, I've played the shit out of this game on the GameCube, probably unsurprisingly. It's probably one of my most played GameCube games, is this in Smash Brothers Melee. The GameCube was a good place to play games that had Melee at the end of the title.
Indeed.
The trailer, it looks like a laughably cheap remaster, which is what it should be. It's not it's not like, oh, we put ray tracing in and shit like that. Like it is, a good, cheap, quick and dirty kind of job they've done based on the trailer. The trailer does show classic Showa era Mechagodzilla, which was not in the original game. The original game I believe it had two Mechagodzillas, but it had the Mechagodzilla 2 Mechagodzilla design from the 90s and then Kiryu from the 2000s era movies. But they did not have original Showa era Mechagodzilla, but he is in the trailer. So, who knows what that means? That might be a whole new character. It might just be a skin for the old Mechagodzillas. Maybe they just took the Mechagodzilla 2 and made him look like classic Mechagodzilla because that is the kind of canonical one that people think of. Who knows? But, it seems like they're maybe doing a little bit of extra stuff, as you say, with like online multiplayer, something with the campaign. Looks like it's not just we kind of fancied up the graphics. There's some additional content in there as well. But I would not go in expecting a lot of that, is what I'd say.
But honestly, it's
the trailer.
It just getting remastered is more than I would have ever expected. I would have thought like rights issued would have doomed this game forever, So it's just cool it's coming back at all. I'm psyched for it. It's also the only game brave enough to come out against Grand Theft Auto 6.
Yes.
I like that. and I am more excited for this than Grand Theft Auto 6. I am the rare person who can honestly say that, but I'm excited to play this game again. It rocked. You could just mow down buildings as Godzilla. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Just pick up buildings and throw them at fucking Megalon. Yeah, it's a good time. I wonder if they will do a remaster of the not quite as good sequel, Godzilla Save the Earth. Or maybe they will finally make a new Godzilla Destroy All Monsters game, and just, this is them testing the waters to see if there is a market for it.
Sean, here's my suggestion. After Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls is out, ArcSys is going to need a new game. When do we get the Kaiju verse? That sounds like the greatest game ever. I think that would be like unreal, but I want to play it.
While I would obviously be super into that game, I do think that as an IP, there's maybe not as much, interest behind like classic Kaiju's versus Marvel characters, at least right now. But we do have, they're still putting out like that fucking the TV show with Kurt Russell, The Monarch or whatever. They had 2 seasons.
Well, and this is timed to Godzilla -0 because this is coming out the same, I think the same week actually as Godzilla -0. So this is clearly they're trying to float on that because that's going to be a very popular movie, obviously.
Yeah. So there's it's kaiju stuff is bigger now than it's been in a very long time. So there's hope that this will lead to a bigger new project. I wouldn't hold my breath that it would be an ArcSys fighting game. But,
I know.
It could be anything. Who knows?
All right, you want to talk about the Sony State of Play and get into the proper Not-E3 2026?
Yes, let's talk about what is old Sony up to.
Well, Wolverine got a gameplay trailer that is it's just extraordinarily violent. Like, it make you blush violent. It is coming September 15th to PS5, obviously, and it looks good. What did you think of the gameplay trailer, Sean? This is like the longest look we've gotten at the game so far.
Yeah, I think it looks good. Yeah, it's like, it feels like in like evolution or extension of some of the stuff they did with Spider-Man, but obviously for a different sort of game. It's clear it's not open world. It's a more kind of what seems like maybe wide linear action game, and it's got some good environmental interaction and destruction and stuff. Like there's a part where Wolverine just fucking, fireman kicks a dude into a forklift and he gets impaled on the forklift forks, which is a good Wolverine-ass thing to do. Like, yes, there's, they've clearly put a lot of time into building their blood globule system, where the blood is not just like a decal that appears on the environment, but it's like some sort of like physically rendered thing in the world. They did say that if you're more squeamish or you're not into the gore, that there are accessibility features where you can toggle some of it on and off. You can toggle on or off dismemberment and stuff like that. Which I think is good. Lots of games are starting to do that more these days, which I think is a good feature. And they did also show Jean Grey is in there, Marvel Girl herself, although I don't think she's gone by that name since like the 60s. But she's there. And there are some tag team takedowns with her and Wolverine. And I do particularly like at the end of the gameplay section, there was a kind of like quick kind of tease that's like flashed a bunch of scenes from the story from later in the game. And you see like Omega Red and stuff like that in there. And I'm very interested to see their takes on not just Wolverine, but like the whole like kind of expanded X-Men cast and who else will show up. Because you don't get this is very much a gameplay demo. It's not a story trailer, but I think you get a good sense of like the world and stuff they're building in the version of X-Men. I'm very curious to see more.
Yeah, not to be a deadbeat downer on the Wolverine thing, because I do think this game looks good. I'm excited. I'm definitely going to play it. I love Insomniac. I still do have a little bit of I don't know. I want to play the full game because the level of violence still does not quite sit with me. It's not so much like the gore effects or the amount of blood. It's like playing, and I understand, Wolverine's hands are knives. This is what he can do. It would be weird if he was just going up and knocking people out with the knife hands. That wouldn't work. But there's also him just coming up to people who these are just guys who I guess work for this organization, and he just impales their eyeballs out. And it's just stuff like that. It's like Jean Grey throwing people at Wolverine for him to disembowel, and I'm like, I don't know a lot about the X-Men. It feels a little weird that Jean Grey is helping Wolverine just murder people in the most brutal way possible. And it's just stuff like that where I'm like, I kind of want to see the fuller context. I'm not morally outraged about it or anything like that. I'm not doing the please think of the children. And I've seen this sentiment a little bit online from some other people where it's I can't quite put my finger on it. It's just something, and maybe it's because my main exposure to Wolverine is Hugh Jackman in the movies. Maybe that's it, or the cartoon stuff where obviously he isn't doing this. But I don't know. That's just my one little reservation.
Yeah, for me, I'd like my reference for Wolverine is that he just murders the shit out of people. And Jean Grey also is not. I mean, obviously, depending on at what point in the timeline you're talking about Jean Grey, she's killed a lot more people than Wolverine, but that's a Phoenix whole thing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think, and you do get at least a sense in the context of the trailer, he's not just like fucking ripping random people apart. They are like some sort of group that are kidnapping and selling like mutant children or some shit. So if there's anybody's thinking of the children, it's Wolverine, because he's murdering all the people trying to kidnap them. And I'm curious to see, in the broader context of the story, I think there is a version of this game that could actually be very gratifying, where, the metaphor is embedded within the X-Men stuff maybe would be very relevant in a, depicting a thing where there's some sort of fascist group that is rounding up certain segments of the population based on the way they look and then shipping them off to camps, and you just run up to those people and fucking stab knives through their faces. Maybe that would be a fun game to play. I don't know.
You're right, and you know what? I saw, because on PlayStation Blog they had an interview with the people from Insomniac where they were talking about the violence. This is where we learned about the system that you could turn it off and toggle and all of that. And I wish they had given the exact defense you just did, Sean, of if anyone's thinking of the children, it's Wolverine. He loves the children.
He loves the children so much he will murder the shit out of people trying to harm them. This is my kind of hero.
You've sold me, Sean. And again, I was already sold. This game looks very. I will also say, I watched the stream of this when it was airing, and the stream was in horrible quality, just like the lowest bitrate of it, just awful. And then I did later on show this to my brother, and it was on my TV, and it was the 4K upload. The graphics in this game are incredible. The detail on Wolverine's body, his arms, his face, the facial features, all of that stuff. And in terms of gore, my favorite thing about the gore system is what it does to his body, where just chunks keep flying off Wolverine, and then as he regenerates, because obviously that's his mutant power, they come back together. All of that is really cool.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they read a lot of the more hardcore Wolverine comics, where it's a lot of that kind of shit. Of Wolverine gets shot in the chest with a shotgun, and there's a chunk of him missing, and then he throws a guy and impales him on a forklift and shit like that. I was pretty into the trailer. And I do think it is also probably one of the reasons why I just don't watch the live streams anymore, is for what you just said, that particularly at this point with these kinds of games that are PS5 level games, they just don't show well on poor video bitrate. Even YouTube is really not great for them. It's just something, I think particularly it was something that stood out to me this generation when I played Horizon Forbidden West. And that was a game that looked good on the trailers. And then I played it, I got the actual game and played it on my TV. I'm oh, this game looks fucking incredible. But so much of the advancement of graphics are in the kind of more fiddly, nuanced details that don't come across in even all that well in YouTube videos. They just get destroyed on these fucking live streams that are terrible. And so
I will say, just to give credit, the State of Play live stream was awful. The Summer Game Fest one, I didn't watch live, but apparently got out of sync and everything, just awful. The Xbox one this morning was good. It was probably the best video quality I've seen for this kind of thing. So whatever they did over at Xbox, other people should take their cues from that.
Yeah, but I do think it's just a thing that it's hard to always kind of get a sense of the actual kind of graphical and aesthetic quality of some of these games based on this media. And it's a problem that the industry is going to have to figure out at some point, because I think it's it is where these games always just look so much more impressive to me when I actually play them at home versus when I look at them on YouTube videos.
Well, this is why game streaming doesn't work, right? Is because the problem with streaming is the bit rate. The problem with bitrate is the compression algorithms and the amount you have to compress stuff down. And the stuff that gets compressed is the stuff that in modern graphics, fast motion or particles or things like that, is the stuff that gets destroyed. And so it's particularly bad for games, more so than even for movies and stuff. Anyway, we can move on from Wolverine. We also saw Ace Combat 8, Wings of Thief. It is coming October 2nd. Pre-orders will include a remaster of the PS2 game Ace Combat Zero, which is cool. They actually had the director of this game out to talk about it, and it clearly they are making a push of hey, maybe you've heard about Ace Combat before, but you've never played it, because obviously this is a series that is very old at this point, and I don't think there's been one that's gotten a lot of mainstream attention recently, so this is definitely a push to, I think, get people into it. And I've never played an Ace Combat game, but this was a very impressive showing. The game looks awesome. I like the whole thing of giving you a remaster of an older game when you pre-order this one, and I hope they do well with this, because this does look cool.
Yeah, this one is definitely on my radar. Like, I know that both of us would love Ace Combat. Like, people have said this to me online, because it's like, we are Gundam people, and Ace Combat is very Gundam coded in a lot of ways. It's just jets instead of mobile suits. And so I don't know if I'll be able to play it, because there's a lot of fucking games coming out at the end of September and early October. So who knows when, if I'll be able to get to it, but it's definitely on my radar in a way that an Ace Combat game has not been till now.
Yeah. So anyway, and yeah, we'll see. And again, I will say the little sweetener of you pre-order the game and we'll give you another game. I like that. More games. That would be cool if more games that like have a legacy behind them of like older games did that, of just like, hey, here's a simple remaster of a PS2 game with this. Even if like that PS2 game on its own would only sell for like $5 to $10 or something, I think of it, I'm like, that's very nice of you. I like this.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it is an interesting venue to bring some of those games back that are maybe not something that's going to sell much on its own, but can be a nice little sweetener. It's a very interesting idea.
We got a big look at Control Resonant, which we already knew was coming, but we got a firm release date for it, and it is going into the eye of the maelstrom on September 24th. I have still not played Control 1, Sean, although I will say, with the Days of Play sale, they were selling the Control Ultimate Edition on PS5 for $4. It was $3.99, so I did buy it. It is on my PS5. I will try to play it this summer because I know it is great. But Sean, you are the big Control fan. I know you love this studio. Are you excited for Control Resonant?
I'm very, very excited. I'm also very concerned about that release date. I think there's a good chance, that some of these September games, I think Control Resonant is a pretty high candidate for this, will push out of that date. Because presumably, I assume that like some of the people setting these dates probably have a sense of where other games are going to have release dates, but I'm sure that they don't know everything. So there might be some studios coming out of it like, fuck, it's like everything's coming out the same week as us. And yeah, like Control Resonant, I think just looks awesome. It's a very bold, different kind of take because it is not a third-person shooter. It's like a third-person action game a la Devil May Cry, but it's obviously set in the same world. It stars Jesse Faden's brother, the main character from the first game, her brother, who's sort of a pseudo-antagonist in the first game. Like narratively, the art design, the gameplay, it just looks really fascinating to me. I just hope it does not get drowned out if that is when it comes out, because there's a lot of stuff that I'm interested in playing that's coming out right at that time, and I don't want to have to make a lot of hard choices in September about what I do and don't play, because this is like a must play for me, but there are other must plays right there, so I think it would be healthy for the game if they went somewhere else.
Yeah, and what's extra funny is that the last time the studio put out a game was Alan Wake 2, and they did the exact same thing where they came out a week after an Insomniac game. It was Spider-Man 2. And Alan Wake 2 did well, but its sales were definitely, like, suppressed in the beginning by, I think, the time when they decided to put it out. Even you didn't get to it on day one, I don't think, like, if I remember. Yeah.
No, I played it over either the summer or something like that, because then I went back and played Alan Wake 1, which I had not played up till that point.
So, like, I want this studio to do well. I think Control Resonant is the kind of game that would command a lot of attention if it came out in a less attention-starved part of the year. Like, honestly, I think they'd do better coming out in November versus September, because it's at least, like, a really different game than GTA 6 with a different potential audience. I don't know with September, though. There's so many games that are going to be fighting for that exact gamer.
Or just fucking come out in December, man. Pull a Nintendo.
Yes.
Like, why is Nintendo the only company that will ever release a video game in fucking December? It's like, it's not fucking 2004 anymore. It's okay for you to not be out right before Black Friday. Like, come on. Like, please, for the love of God. Like, literally, there is no video game lined up in the month of December currently with a fixed release date. I would be really happy.
And your only competition will be Nintendo, because no one else is going to do it. So if anyone does it, it'll be Nintendo. And Control isn't a Nintendo game, so you're fine. You're fine. Anyway, we shall see. But I'm glad that team has another big game coming out. And definitely that seemed like, of everything that was shown off at the Sony State of Play, at least third-party stuff, that got the biggest, I think, attention online. And I'm excited for that. We also, going back to remasters of games, we are getting a remaster of Dynasty Warriors 3, the complete edition, on October 1st. This was originally a PS2 game from 2001. This is one of the fan favorite Dynasty Warriors games. And after playing Dynasty Warriors Origins, I've definitely, got a hunger to see more of that series. So I'm glad this is coming out. This is cool.
The most hilarious thing about it is that there is a classic costume thing in the game, and it's not, oh, we gave you the classic costume. It's that here is the original PS2 models of these characters. So it's
That's
here's
great.
these chunky, blocky ass looking character models sitting on a really nice modern looking horse in a video game. I'm interested in that. I think October 1st is a very bad time for that game to come out. I think this thing we're going to say about several of these titles. I don't know if I will play. I've not played the original Dynasty Warriors 3. I think that's before I ever started playing them. It certainly is before I was playing them in the obsessive, or it was the Three Kingdoms way. But I played some of the old Dynasty Warriors. I don't think I ever played that one, but
Yeah. All right, then we've got Marvel Tokone Fighting Souls. Obviously, this game has been shown many times. This trailer was focused on Magneto, Green Goblin, Carnage, Doctor Doom, who will combine into the Knights of Doom as a team for the game. This is coming August 6th. We already knew that, but obviously this is the big PS5 exclusive from Arc Sys. This is their follow-up to Dragon Ball FighterZ. It is a Marvel fighter game, and I have to say, of everything shown at this show, I thought this was the cool... This is the game from Sony that is in the immediate future I am most excited for. Dragon Ball FighterZ is a generationally great version of that kind of thing. This looks outstanding. There's just the way they do the hand-drawn comic book style fighting. And I'm not even a big Marvel comics guy, but I just think this looks tremendous.
yeah, I thought this trailer was awesome. Doctor Doom was in the original trailer for the game, so this specifically showed Magneto, Green Goblin, and Carnage. It's the first time those characters have been shown, and it's some cool choices. It's interesting that it's two Spider-Man villains, but I think it's just sort of a tacit recognition that Spider-Man has the best bad guys of any Marvel characters, like Batman for DC. If you're going to have two villains for one superhero, that would be the character you'd pick. And it's cool because Green Goblin and Carnage are not Marvel fighting game characters. Venom has been in a whole shit ton of the old Marvel vs. games. The Capcom ones, but Carnage has not, and Green Goblin very much has not. And so it's something I think they've been doing a good job with this game, is that they're picking some here are characters you have to have. You gotta have Magneto, you gotta have Doctor Doom. Of your bad guys, you have to have those two, both because Magneto has a big legacy in the old Marvel vs. games, but also because he's fucking Magneto. Everybody knows him. He's one of the most iconic comic book villains ever. But blending that with some choices that are a little bit more interesting, that aren't just the one you would assume. Green Goblin, I would not have ever guessed that he would be a character in this game. Even if he's a well-known character, he's just not quite that, he's not Venom, He's not Magneto, he's not Doctor Doom, he's not that top level. And so you usually don't quite get to him. And going for Carnage rather than Venom, I think, is also a cool choice, because Venom's been in so many of these kinds of games. Carnage has never been in one. In a fighting game like this. And so I think those are some cool choices. The character designs look awesome. Green Goblin looks fucking sick. It's a great design. Carnage is a bigger, beefier version of Carnage than you usually get, but he's got some cool looking powers. And then Magneto in the Japanese version of the game is voiced by Otsuka Hochu himself, Cow from Heavy Metal Elgime, which is, I'm sure, the world that everybody knows him from. If you've been listening to the Tomiothon, you know what I'm talking about. Yazan Gable from Zeta Gundam himself will be playing Magneto, and that's a pretty cool casting choice.
Yeah. They also detailed separately, this wasn't in the state of play, but we got more details on Sony is releasing a basically first-party fight stick, the Flex Strike wireless fight stick. This is coming out around the time. It's definitely tied into Marvel Tokone, but it'll be a fight stick that is officially DualSense licensed. So it's got the buttons on it. It's got a touchpad equivalent, so you can do that if you need to use it. I really don't know where that is used anymore, but it's there for you. And it's both wireless and wired, but the wireless version is with a dongle, so that you have the lower latency than you would have over Bluetooth. And that does look cool. It's pricey. It's $200. That's pretty standard for this kind of fight stick thing. But I think it's cool that there's going to be a first-party Sony one, because sometimes it's hard to find what's a good one. It's hard to see in the world of third-party sticks what's the good stuff. And I think that's interesting that they're doing that.
Yeah. One last note on Toko and Fighting Souls is that we only have 3 characters left to announce. There's one last team, which we know is going to be the Ghost Rider team, because he's the only character that we know is in the game who's not part of a pre-existing team. And that, to me, invites some interesting chances, because if Ghost Rider is the leader of the team, like Doctor Doom was for the Knights of Doom, which is how they've kind of been showing off these characters, is they had the leader of the team and then they filled in the other members in the trailer. I think there's a pretty good chance that the last team might be something like Blade, Moon Knight, and Daredevil. Like, if I were to be picking, something that's not obscure characters, but also not characters that are in all of these Marvel fighting games, and Ghost Rider's the leader of your team, those are 3 characters that exist in the same area of Marvel as Ghost Rider, and that would be pretty sick. In particular, I would love for Daredevil to be in one of these games, because I don't think he's ever been in any of the Marvel versus games, and he's such a good character. Obviously, you have like the TV show in modern era that has made him more popular than he used to be. And he's just fucking cool as shit, and I would love to see Daredevil in a game like this. Who knows? I'm sure like whoever the 3 characters are, they'll be cool, and I'll be happy with them. But those would be Blade, Moon Knight, and Daredevil would be some pretty cool characters to put in this game, I think.
Daredevil is my favorite Marvel character. He would be my main if they did this. I would fucking love that. That sounds fucking awesome. Moon Knight would also be cool. I really liked that Disney Plus show. Some people didn't. They're not cool. I liked Moon Knight. I'd like to play as Moon Knight. Moon Knight is interesting.
Yeah, Moon Knight's a cool guy. He's like Batman, but cooler.
All right, let's move on. We also had a game called Kemuri from Ikumi Nakamura's studio Unseen. This game, I think, was announced at like the Game Awards a couple years ago, but we got like a good look at it here. It looks really cool. It's like a big, third-person, very crazy action game. It's coming to PS5 in 2027, and Ikumi Nakamura, who became famous and memed for her talking about The Evil Within 2 when she was at that studio.
No, Ghostwire Tokyo is what you're thinking.
Ghostwire Tokyo, okay.
Same studio, different game.
Same studio.
But yeah,
anyway.
she was like the meme star of I believe it was the last E3 of all time.
Yeah.
The final E3, the Grave 3. And she was really cool.
Yeah, and she was really cool here, too. She came out and talked about the game. She's just so, chipper and excited about video games. How can you not love her? And Kemuri does look like a really cool game. A big original game from a new studio, big kind of AAA kind of thing. It looks great. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, and it's got that kind of Ghostwire Tokyo-esque vibe in some ways of like, it's still like, it's kind of that like yokai, Japanese folklore-based stuff. Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah. We got more from Onimusha, Way of the Sword, which is Capcom's 3rd big game of the year. It is coming September 25th, right into the maelstrom. They did release a demo for PS5 on the day of the Sony State of Play, and I have not had a chance to check that out yet, Sean, but it looks, honestly, I kind of just want to pick this game up, like, sight unseen, because Capcom has been having the most banner fucking year, and I'm kind of just like, I'm all in on Capcom at this point.
Yeah, I did play the demo. I played it this morning because I had the thought like, oh, we're doing the podcast. I might as well.
Yeah.
I've got like 30 minutes to kill. It's pretty fucking cool. I think people don't need to go play the demo if you're interested in just getting the game. You just wait for the game. But I know me, and I assume you as well, Jonathan, we've never played any of the Onimusha games before. And I bought the 1 and 2 remasters that are on PlayStation. I want to try to get to those this summer if I have time, because yeah, I think right now that is the game that is my, like, of the September games, I think that is slightly pushing out Control Resonant as the one I'm most interested in, particularly after that demo. The demo's really good. It's interesting because it has a lot of things in common with modern third-person action games. It has like a parry system and stuff like that, but it's just a bit more mechanically complex. Like, it's a fun demo because it's not a hard demo, but it's just, there's a bigger kind of mental load that it's asking you to deal with than you normally do for these games that, like, we're so used to the, like, Dark Souls style combat, which is very fun, but, like, part of the thing with Dark Souls style combat is that it is very simple on a fundamental mechanical level. It's about, like, the enemies and the environment and that kind of stuff makes it more complicated, but it's like, here's my regular attack, here's my heavy attack, I block, I dodge. Here you've got, like, a parry, but you also have a deflect, which is like do the parry, but you do it while pushing the stick towards the enemy, and you have a dodge, and the dodge works against certain moves better than the parry works against certain other attacks from enemies, so you're more reading attacks from enemies more specifically. The demo ends with a boss fight against Sasaki Kojiro, because the main character in the game is Miyamoto Musashi, who's a historical famous samurai who there's like a myth about him that he fought this character named Sasaki Kojiro. If you know Fate Stay Night, you might know some stuff about that stuff, because that's that's assassin in Fate Stay Night is Sasaki Kojiro. So you have a boss fight with that character in the demo at the end. And it was interesting because it took me 3 times to beat him. And on the 3rd time, I was like, oh, this is a super easy boss fight. It's just I didn't understand the mechanics yet until I fought a character that kind of pushed them to the edge. And the flow of the game's combat felt so good. There's a real sense of physicality to it. The animation work is just spectacular. There's something about the responsiveness of the way the character parries and dodges, and lots of different animations for parries. It's not like Sekiro, also obviously an amazing game, but in Sekiro, it's like you parry and it's just like creates a big flash on the screen and that's it. And it's like it's using effects to kind of cover up the fact that all your character's doing is waving his sword in a specific direction and the attack just goes away. Here, it's much more physical. You feel like the sword is passing through yours. The character's like sidestepping in a way that has a sense of real physics to it. And there's just some really interesting combat stuff in there. So if you're on the fence about the game, I think it is well worth playing the demo. It's short. It's only like 30 minutes. It's clearly like a quick little piece at the beginning of the game that kind of is tutorializing stuff, while also not just like showing you there's no like narrative setup. You don't get a good sense of what the story is or anything, but just as a way to play around with the mechanics a little bit, it's cool. Like, I haven't played those classic Onimusha games, so I can't say how it's similar or different from those, but you can feel, I think, like an interesting blend of some modern trends in third-person action combat stuff with stuff that feels a little bit more old school to me. Again, I don't know if those mechanics are from the original, but it's the kind of impression it gives me. So very excited about this game. Capcom has been on just an absolute fucking tear, as we'll say talk about something else later that was announced. But this game looks really cool.
Yeah, it absolutely does. All right. We also had Phantom Blade Zero coming out October 29th. We have Rayman Legends Retold, a remake of the Rayman Legends game from 2012. Seems unnecessary, but okay, that's yep. October 1st. No one will play that. It's October 1st. Silent Hill Townfall, September 24th. And Stuntman Hollywood revealed. Any of those you want to react to, Sean?
Most of them kind of whatever. I mean, I do think the Rayman Legends Retold is just like weird to me. That game is available. It was on the PS4. It was originally a Wii U game, but there was a PS4 version. You can just play it. The remake is like they made it 3D. I don't know why. Like, the original game is a 2D game.
It looks worse than the original. I don't know why you would play this one. It's weird.
It's very weird. Stuntman Hollywood is an interesting one because I played the original Stuntman on, I guess it would have been Xbox, but I rented it from Blockbuster. Like, this is a very long time ago. And it's the original one was a pretty interesting game where it's a driving game where you have to like basically create stunts for a movie. And so you get directions to drive in a specific way. It's like, you have to take this jump. You have to do a drift around this corner. And it kind of rates you on how well you did. It was a pretty interesting take on a driving game. This one's cool because it is the original was just kind of made up movies that were like, parodies or whatever, satires of famous films. This one is they are partnering with, I don't remember, I think it's Universal. It's a Hollywood studio that has a bunch of, whoever I guess probably makes the Fast and the Furious, because that's one of the ones that was in the trailer. Yeah, so there's a bunch of like movie properties of actual famous movie stunts and stuff like that presumably you'll be either recreating specific stunts from those movies or doing stunts inspired by stunts from those movies, driving cars from those movies. Like, that's a pretty interesting way to bring this very dormant, very obscure kind of pseudo franchise back. And you just don't get a lot of very arcadey driving games that have some sort of budget anymore, that aren't some kind of weird independent game that's only on the PC or some shit. So I don't know if I will play it, but it was a very interesting announcement that I think if it comes out at a good time, and if it's maybe like a $40 game or something like that, I could see myself playing it. Because I remember really liking the original Stuntman when I rented it when I was like 12 or something, a very, very long time ago.
Yeah, specifically, it's made in partnership with NBC Universal. So it's Fast and Furious, Back to the Future, Knight Rider, Miami Vice, and Death Race is what they showed off. But we know, they said in an interview afterwards, it will also have a Jurassic Park level, but they couldn't clear the rights to show it for the trailer here, but it is in the game. They just couldn't show it in the State of Play trailer. So that's interesting. Fun stuff going on there. All right. We did get a good look at the new Tomb Raider game from Crystal Dynamics, Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis, that is coming February 12th. It looks like a very specific, like a combination of some of the stuff from the recent trilogy, the Dawn of the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider trilogy, with more of the original PlayStation trilogy, not to be too blunt about it, but her boobs are bigger. It is more cartoony. There's more you see puzzle solving stuff. There are dinosaurs. She's doing the 2-gun thing, all of that stuff. So kind of interesting. I'm curious how this gets received. We know that TV show coming out that I'm sure is going to be a giant hit, because the history of Tomb Raider on film is nothing but hits. Yeah. Nothing but hits.
Hey, fourth time's the charm. They've done a lot of these at this point. I guess
it's the third Lara Croft, because there were 2 Angelina Jolie movies. There's the one movie with Alicia Vikander, and then this is the TV series with Sophie Turner, who I did see an interview the other day saying, "We hope this show runs for years and years." And I'm like, it's not going to, Sophie. I'm so sorry, but no.
No show runs for years and years these days. And 2, sure as shit, this Tomb Raider show is not. Maybe it's good, but I don't think it matters if it's good or not. It's not going to run for years and years. Specifically, this Legacy of Atlantis, just to be clear, this is a remake of the original Tomb Raider. Because they are also
I lost it in the chain of remakes. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yes, because there is also a new Tomb Raider that was announced. That is not this game.
That is not this game. Okay. I'm being a bad news person.
This one has the dinosaurs, because dinosaurs were the original Tomb Raider, and she shot the dinosaurs with her 2 pencils.
Yes. Okay. This is the second remake of the original Tomb Raider. Okay. God damn it, we are in the era of second remakes of games, and I want off this fucking carousel. Yeah. This is stupid. Jesus Christ. Anyway.
I mean, talking of games I rented from Blockbuster, I think it was the remake of, maybe it was Tomb Raider Underworld, which was the game they made that was at the same time, but one of those 2 I played. I can't honestly remember which was the one I played, which was the one I was like, that was fun when I rented it. I should rent the other one, and it ultimately didn't. I played one of those 2 Tomb Raider games they made near the end of the Xbox generation.
So it was Tomb Raider, then it was Tomb Raider Anniversary in 2007. Yes. Now there's this one. Okay. But you can see where there is some influence from the more recent games that were here as well.
This is not like I think this is a totally new take of what was the original Tomb Raider. It's not I don't think they probably looked at the Tomb Raider Anniversary game probably for anything in this. It is just they have happened to have made Tomb Raider again before. I mean, to be fair, as far as we know, Capcom hasn't officially announced it, but as far as we know, Capcom is remaking Resident Evil 1 again. The problem is Capcom just has a much better track record with its remakes than Crystal Dynamics does.
Yeah, well, we will see. All right, so we had Tomb Raider. They announced Until Dawn 2. It is being developed by Firesprite Games, not the original developers, which was Supermassive. They just put out a game this month, or last month, Directive 8020, and so they are not working on this. It didn't really look like Until Dawn 1 much at all, but I don't know. I've never played Until Dawn. People like it. Maybe they'll like this. It's coming out.
Yeah, it's Until Dawn 2 in the sense of it's another game in that style, which Supermassive has been making. They made the Quarry game. They've been making all these Man of Medan or whatever they're called games.
Yeah.
That are these you play, they're horror games where they're very narrative focused, but it's kind of like an evolution of the Telltale games where there's choices you can make, but the big gimmick is that anyone can live or anyone can die. The original Until Dawn was a bunch of people going up to a snowy mountain resort kind of area. This is they're in some sort of tropical resort. So I don't think there's any crossover other than the Peter Stormare narrator character who's in the original game. I think is in this one as well, based on the trailer. But other than that, I think it's just it's the same premise, just made by a different studio, but with a whole new cast of characters and a whole new location with a whole new plot.
Yeah, so we will see about that. And then finally, the big announcement of the day is they ended with 20 minutes from presumably just the first 20 minutes of God of War Laufey, which is the long-rumored new God of War game that is really kind of a spin-off of the current, Greek gods set of games where this is about. It's actually, Sean, I have to say, it's kind of funny. When they started showing this, it begins with Kratos and Atreus at the beginning of God of War 2018, where they're burning the Mother Faye's body. And I rolled my eyes and went, oh my God, they're doing a remake of God of War 2018. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Because that would be no more ridiculous than that Last of Us Part 1 thing. Like, just to be perfectly clear, you might roll your eyes and say, Jonathan, how could you have thought that? Because they already did that at Sony. But no, I was very happy to see, no, that is just the branching point, because once they give her her funeral, her soul goes and does not wind up in the afterlife of Valhalla, but somewhere else, and we are following the character Faye/Laufey, played by Daredevil's own Deborah Ann Woll, who is an awesome actress who I remember thinking in God of War Ragnarok, like, that's a pretty big actress to get for this, like, one scene she's in this game. Clearly they got her for this, and then she is also in Ragnarok briefly. But this is the new God of War. It is combining seemingly some of the, like, combo-based gameplay stuff from the original trilogy. Obviously, the style of it is exactly like the more recent Greek mythology games, where it's all done in the one-take
Norse
style.
mythology is what you're...
Sorry. You're right, Norse mythology. And yeah, I will admit, I don't think this was the best way to show off this game. I think just because they said 20 minutes of gameplay, and yeah, technically, but it's 20 minutes of moving the camera on the right stick while the story happens in front of you. I don't really consider that gameplay, but okay. I thought it was interesting to see. I wish they had done something a little more concise to, like, show this off, because I got a little bored with it. But I'm very excited for the game. I mean, honestly, if I got bored with it, it's because I kind of just wanted to pick up the controller and play the goddamn game that was playing in front of me, because it does look very cool. I love Deborah Ann Woll. I think this team over at Sony Santa Monica is great. I'm excited to see them do a proper PS5 game, because Ragnarok was cross-gen, and you even get to see a little bit of how they're leveraging that, because there's a moment where she has to, like, do some magic, and a whole new, like, area of the world just loads in immediately, and it's something they could not have done in the past games. So stuff like that I am psyched for.
Yeah, this game looks awesome. I did not watch the 20-minute video because I saw it was 20 minutes. So, like, I'm going to fucking play this game. I don't need to watch that. But what I watched instead was they very shortly after that put out 2 videos. One that was like a cast interview with a bunch of the people in the game, and then another one that was a thing with, like, I think it was like a combat designer and maybe the game director or something like that, talking over some of the changes. And I thought those probably were a better way to, like, get some stuff, info on the game, and see the clips from the 20-minute thing that were, like, the big moments of the gameplay parts and less of the story setup. And yeah, this game looks awesome. Like, it has been, rumored and sort of pseudo-leaked to high hell for a year or so at this point that they were making a Faye starring game, but we didn't know what the premise was. And I think the premise is way more interesting. Like, I was sort of very skeptical about the idea of a prequel starring that character, because it's just like, I feel like Ragnarok, some of the most fun stuff in Ragnarok narratively is you getting more of this very evocative stuff about who Faye was without seeing it directly. And I think that I don't want to see, like, a dramatization of some of the stories that Kratos tells Atreus and stuff like that. I think this idea of, well, death is not the end for these characters. They will go somewhere else. She's in this, like, other version of the afterlife, where a bunch of these other gods have ended up, and there's some sort of mystery around that, and she has to deal with that. I think that's a cool premise that feels like it's not, it doesn't have the prequel problem of, like, you just know where everything's going to go. It gets to feel like a full new story in this world. And the prequel stuff, especially the world of video games, ends up making the game often feel really small, or like it's like a side game or something. This feels like it's a proper new God of War game. And I love that kind of direction for the story. And also opens up that they can go show different things, different areas. You're not just stuck. I think another reason I was worried about the idea of it being a prequel is I don't feel like I need to be in the Norse setting for a third God of War game. I want to go to somewhere new, and this is a cool way to show new characters in a new setting and all that kind of stuff. Plus, the combat stuff looked really cool. Laufey can jump. She's not an old man like Kratos, whose knees can't jump anymore like when he was a young guy in the Greek games, and so she can do, like, proper air combos and stuff like that. Obviously, they're kind of, like, pitching this as she is a much more agile character, and that's a bigger part of her kind of moveset, whereas Kratos was all about raw power and raw strength. And I think that just shows a cool, different way to do what is, I think, still a kind of like best-in-class version of third-person combat, that the God of War 2018 Ragnarok, the combat, that those two games are so good. And I think having a new character and leveraging what makes her different than Kratos and thinking about how does that inform the combat is a cool direction to go. So I'm very excited for this game. Definitely want to play it, but do not need to watch a 20-minute demo. That is just the first 20 minutes of the game. I will happily play it.
Yes, absolutely. And, I saw this idea represented very stupid online in some spaces where I saw people saying, like, this is fixing the problem that God of War fridged Faye. I'm like, no, that's not what that term means. It's just the backstory is that their mom is dead, and it's okay to have stories about dead characters, guys.
Yeah.
But it is true that you have these two games about this character who is this very present absence in the story. And also, this is a series that has been very male-centric and has been, I think, part of a larger conversation of, like, the dadification of gaming, right? That there are so many, and it is not any one game's fault, but it is the larger nature of the industry that you have a lot of men in these positions of power who have grown up making games, now have kids, and are making games about being dads, and that's what God of War 2018 is, and you've got a lot of these. And we haven't had a lot of the flip side. And I do think it is really cool that Sony Santa Monica is taking the initiative to say, we can do both of those. We can do the game about being a dad, and here we can do the game about being... Obviously, it's a different kind of context because she is dead, but this is a character who is, among other things, a mom. This is a series that has had a lot of testosterone in its body, let's say. I'm thinking more of the original Greek games in that sense. But I think it is cool. And, this is a game directed by a woman, Ariel Lawrence, at Sony Santa Monica. Very rare in the AAA game space in this industry to have a female game director. And all of that, I know the people the writers on the game, that you had women involved. And I think all of that is really neat because it is something that I think particularly when you look at like Sony's first party output, they have a lot of great games. They are outside of Horizon, mostly games about dudes. And so I think it is cool to have another game about and made by, in part, women. And I think the game looks awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's also just like very healthy for the God of War franchise that I think like it's good for us to give Kratos a break for like a big game and let him, because I want to see more with Kratos in the future at some point, but I think it's really nice that we can explore the world and explore other characters and we don't need to do another new Kratos adventure, and that we can, I think it builds up more anticipation for where that character can be in the future, that we're not just going into another new place with him, and we get like a different character that then can open up different avenues for the franchise in the future as well. So someone who really likes God of War, including all the old games, and have played all of them other than the PSP ones, I think this is just like, it feels like a nice breath of fresh air for the franchise.
Yeah. And that video you talked about, because they did put out videos with some of the creatives, and the one with Ariel Lawrence was Cory Barlog, who is involved in this game, obviously, as a producer, interviewing her. And I do think you got to hand it to Cory Barlog, who, when he came back for God of War 2018, I think if he had wanted to be directing everything at Sony Santa Monica, he could have done that. And I really appreciate that he took a step back, and he's been creatively involved in all of these, but he did not direct Ragnarok. He's not directing this. He has chosen not to be the Neil Druckmann of Sony Santa Monica. Yeah. And I think it's not a coincidence that they are getting a lot of games out when maybe other studios are not. Just something to say.
I think it's, like there's just something to be said that video games, particularly at this scale, do not work on the auteur theory. Like, even if like movies at big scales typically don't really all that much either, but really video games at this scale really do not. And so I think, I agree with you that he's always seemed like in interviews and stuff like a very humble person when he came back to the studio and all that kind of stuff to do God of War 2018. And I think it's kind of the proof is in the pudding here of someone like that in a leadership position nurturing newer visions and new creators and new people at the studio to take over those roles, and not just saying like, I have to have my hand on the wheel for all these things at all times, which is, I think a risk that a number of studios have fallen into over the years.
Yes. All right. Then let's move on. Sean, that was the Sony State of Play. We now have the Summer Game Fest. I don't have these in any particular order other than like because I did not watch this live, but I went through and kind of picked out the pieces of news that I thought would be worth talking about. And let's start with the biggest thing that we got from Summer Game Fest was the announcement, honestly the surprise announcement, of Final Fantasy VII Revelation, which is the third and final part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. It is coming sooner than anticipated, I think, and a smaller gap than was between 7 Remake and 7 Rebirth. It is coming spring 2027. It'll be PC, PS5, Xbox, and day and date Switch 2, which is cool, because they did just do those ports of Remake and Rebirth to Switch 2, which are really pretty outstanding Switch 2 ports, so it's cool that they are prioritizing that. And yeah, I am not a big fan of Final Fantasy VII Remake or Rebirth, as listeners to this show probably know. If you are, this probably looked great. Didn't do a lot for me. I'm happy for y'all. I am still talking with myself and my God over whether I will play this game. We shall find out. Honestly, Sean, my main reaction was, oh, thank God, this is going to be done, and they can go do other stuff. I'm glad for the people involved. And actually, the director of this game, Naoko Hamaguchi, said basically to that extent. I saw that someone was asked, like, are you going to do more with FF7 in the future? And he said, I'm excited to do other things. And I was like, yeah, you are. I bet you are. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously we share very similar opinions on these new Final Fantasy VII games. I think there's a pretty high chance that I will end up playing this, but it's certainly not a guarantee. I like the way he says this. Like I'm having a spiritual discourse about whether or not I'm gonna put myself through playing this game. You know, it's this thing of where I am both like very curious of like what are they going to do, how's it going to wrap up, while I also know in my heart that I already know, like in the way that I could have predicted almost with exactness everything in Rebirth, other than maybe the degree to which they fucked up the ending. I knew they were going to fuck up the ending with Aerith's death. I couldn't have known just how poorly they would pull it off. But like, you know, I think this will do the same playbook as all these. It will be like a 99% very flat remake of the material from the original Final Fantasy VII, extending stuff out to an absolute breaking point, and then they will have random moments where they'll do some weird fuckery with like, and Zax is in a parallel universe, and you're like, this doesn't mean anything for the story you're telling, and it hurts an already kind of like mangled story you're trying to tell here. I know that that's what this game is going to be, because that's what Final Fantasy VII Remake was. And I finished that game like, this was what Final Fantasy VII, the next one, is going to be. And I played Rebirth, and that's what Rebirth was. And I know that's what Revelation is going to be. I'm going to probably fucking play it anyways. However, can we talk about how fucking terrible the subtitle is? Why did they name this Revelation and not Reunion? Which is a, like, important word that exists in the story of Final Fantasy VII that is the thing that Sephiroth's trying to do. To the point that in the trailer, they bring it up. And I was like, why would you pick the most... And I love Resident Evil Revelation, but why pick this is the handheld spin-off game subtitle to be the subtitle of your third fucking remake game?
They cannot call it Reunion, Sean, because that is what they called the Crisis Core remake. The Crisis Core remake is called Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. You can't call it that because they already have a trademarked game with that title that they are selling. They fucked themselves. They can't call it that. So I guess Revelation
that's the game that should have been called Final Fantasy VII Revelation, because it is a revelation about here's how all this shit happened, and also it is the handheld spin-off game. And also
the revelation is that it's the best Final Fantasy VII game.
Exactly. So, you're right. That is the true revelation. Is you finish it like, is this actually the one that's better than all the other ones? It's a terrible subtitle for a game whose quality we don't know because we haven't played it yet, but we can make guesses.
I mean, you know, it will have the same combat system as the first two, which is, I think, the worst combat system ever featured in a JRPG. Come at me. You're all wrong. It fucking sucks.
I wouldn't go anywhere near that far. It is better than the original ATB battle system from the old Final Fantasy.
Oh, God, no, fuck that. No, I can tolerate the original ATB. No, Sean, this is honestly the biggest thing that would hold me back is I just know I cannot stomach another 50 to 100 hours of that combat system. I hate it. I viscerally break out in hives, hate the combat system in these games. I cannot stand it. It is the principal ludic interaction in these games, and it breaks my brain, and I hate it. That's the main thing that would hold me back from playing this again. It's bad.
I don't have that problem with these games. Like, I generally like the combat. I don't love it. I know there's some people that fucking swear by it. I think it has some pretty notable design issues, but I generally like it. For me, the classic ATB the only reason I could play the original Final Fantasy VII is that I could fast forward through the combat. I guess that's what I'll say.
But at its core, it's just a turn-based battle system. I agree it's kind of slow, but you can fast forward through it on any modern version. Like, it's fine. It doesn't make me want to die inside.
Yeah. That's not my issue with these games. My issue with these games is just the pacing and the storytelling and that kind of stuff. I just kind of kills me.
I hate that stuff too, so yeah.
This will have Sid as a playable character and Vincent as a playable character. They'll be in it. They'll do stuff. I do think like with the combat thing, while I don't hate and I don't even dislike the combat in these games, when I watched the trailer, they did 2 videos. They had a trailer and then they had like kind of a gameplay, like a cinematic trailer, and then a gameplay one. The gameplay one, and I was like, I don't know if I am actually able to go through a whole nother game with that exact combat system, because Rebirth did quite a few things to change it up and do kind of more with it over the original remake game. This doesn't look like, at least based on that gameplay trailer, they're doing all that much different. The big kind of hook is they have they're big fans of Final Fantasy X too, because they brought the dress spheres back, because you can dress up your character, and that changes some part of their moveset. It actually wasn't clear to me what it did, because you have material already that you put on your character that gives you the different spells. You've got your, like, it doesn't do your, I think it's triangle or whatever, but like Punisher mode for Cloud or whatever. Like, every character has that like special move on one of the buttons. I don't know if maybe it changes the things you, like your ATB moves, and you get different ones. But they showed like Tifa is in a black mage suit, like Cloud is in a battle suit or something at some point. And that's supposed to add something to the combat. It wasn't clear what, but it just didn't look like it's going to be enough of a change that even for someone that enjoyed the combat, that was a thing that I got very exhausted of very quickly when I watched that gameplay trail. I'm like, oh my god, another part of his Rebirth is just so long. But I'm like, if I could another 60, 70, 80 hours of this combat, that's a pretty tall ask.
Well, because look, it's not just the combat, it's that it is so over-torqued behind the scenes. You have to do all this management with all the materia, and everyone's got their own skill tree, and you have to and then everyone's got their own weapons that have their own skill trees. Like, that's one of my problems with the combat, is it's so needlessly complicated behind the scenes, and now you're adding more onto it. Like, God, kill me now. No, please, God, no.
Yeah, for my thing with the combat is, I think the combat works for the optional boss fights in the open world in Rebirth is where the combat works really well. The boss fights in the story, it doesn't, because they do the terrible thing where it will interrupt you halfway with a cutscene, and all of your preparation you did to set up your high damage big moves just goes to waste because a cutscene played. And then yes, I think the big problem with the combat, maybe this is the thing of where I got that exhaustion, is when you're fighting regular enemies, you're very...
It's
correct.
trivial.
That it's way overtuned for that. It's like there's too much stuff for these nothing little encounters. And it's like, if it was a Monster Hunt, if it was combat in a Monster Hunter game, I know I'm repeating points that I made on a Rebirth podcast, but if it was that, I think I would enjoy the combat quite a bit. It just does not fit well in the scope of what these games are in other senses. So...
See, the more we talk about it, the more you always come to my side on this, because I'm right. It's a combat system that only works in tiny little optional parts of the game, and in all the stuff that you have to do, it's actually not fun, and that's the problem.
Well, I wouldn't say that it's not fun. I would say that it can become tedious in certain circumstances. I think I don't have the level of hatred for it that you do. I just think it has some of those issues with the combat. Anyways, for me, the most important question is, are they going to include the sex scene between Cloud and Tifa? That does happen in the original Final Fantasy VII, and then everyone in the High Wind watches it. I mean, you don't see the sex happen, but it's strongly implied they have sex and that everyone sees it. And are they going to make that one of the endlessly needless fucking mini games that they put in these fucking things? Can I have a fully interactive sex scene? That's what I want to have happen in this game. They did the hand massage in the first one. That's basically a sex scene. Bring it back, but make it hardcore. I'll pay extra.
You did just say fucking minigame, so it would be a fucking minigame.
It's a fucking minigame, come on.
Yeah. All right. This will be the third Final Fantasy game in a row with a one-winged angel final boss fight. They actually did it, Sean. These crazy bastards. They did 3 Final Fantasy VIIs that end with a big Sephiroth one-winged angel boss fight. What a time.
Somehow you'll do the regular last boss fight from the end of Final Fantasy VII, and then you will do another boss fight with like meta Sephiroth immediately afterwards. I'm planting my flag. This is how this game is going to end. They will play 100% straight the regular ending and the regular Sephiroth battle at the end where he destroys the solar system, but then everything's fine. And he just does that over and over again because that's just how that game worked. And somehow people finished it without fast forwarding it originally. And then you will finish all that, and then some bullshit will happen with the multiverse, and like the ghost of Aerith in the live stream or some shit will show up, and you'll fight Sephiroth again, and that will be the end of the game.
Oh boy. Speaking of remakes, here's a good one. We've got Resident Evil Veronica on the way. It is the remake of Code Veronica for the Dreamcast, coming 2027 to PC, PS5, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch 2. God bless you beautiful bastards at Capcom. This is the one I've been waiting for. This is from the same team that did the Resident Evil 2 and 4 remakes, which is great, because I think Code Veronica is on par with those games, and it's finally getting its day in the sun. The little trailer they showed was a scene that is not in the original game, but is implied, where Claire is going to look for Chris, and she gets kidnapped and presumably taken to the island, and that was cool. That the trailer was in first person, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if the full game will be, but that would be a change up, because the 2 and 4 remakes do the over-the-shoulder thing. Code Veronica originally is like Resident Evil 2. It is a fixed camera angles game, so I'm curious to see how they will do all of that. But honestly, I don't need to see one fucking frame more of this to buy it on day one, because Capcom is so reliable at this point. This team is so reliable. This is going to be the good shit. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this one. I think Code Veronica is a really awesome game, but also a game that could use a remake in some specific areas more, like Steve Burnside, for instance, is something that could be improved a lot. I think in general, the story in Code Veronica has a lot of cool stuff, like the Ashford twins and that kind of stuff, like the bad guys, but also it has some awkwardness, like the Claire and Chris storyline is kind of confusing and doesn't really fully make sense in how, like, Chris re-enters the story and stuff. And that's one of the things I like about this scene you see at the beginning of this game, is it makes it feel like they're taking maybe the premise of Code Veronica a little bit more seriously than the original game did, which is that Claire is trying to find her brother. And hopefully there's a little bit more involved with this one, rather than like she emails Leon and Leon off screen somehow gets in contact with Chris and Chris just shows up on the island. Hopefully there's like a little bit, they do more of a story with that, which I'm sure they will, because one of the big things that they did with the remake games consistently is find like a new, interesting, more modern way to tell those stories. And I think Code Veronica will benefit from that. I think that I'm going to guess very strongly that I think that the first person stuff of this trailer is just a for the trailer thing. I think this will be a third person game like 2 and 4 remake. Keep in mind that Code Veronica does technically have a first person sequence right at the beginning when you're in the cell, and it's a first person camera thing. And that also 3 remake, also that trailer and that game opens with the first person sequence of you in Jill's apartment. That's kind of similar to this. So I think this is, if it's even in the game as a first-person sequence, I think it will just be as the kind of opening, we're setting the tone thing, and the game will actually be a third-person over-the-shoulder like the other games made by this team. I think that's what they will do. Now, for me, my question is, do you think that they changed the title from Code Veronica, just Veronica, in order to make the final puzzle of the game a little bit harder? Because the last puzzle of the game is you have to enter a passcode. Spoilers for Resident Evil Code Veronica, and the code is Veronica. And it's a little bit of a bummer to me that, I do think Resident Evil Veronica probably in a vacuum is a better title. But the moment I finished that game, which for me was, just several months ago, it wasn't that long ago, and I got to the end of there, I had to put in the code. I'm like, what's the code? Aha, I know what the code is. I've known what the code is for most of my life. It's Veronica. Is a for me a very great video game moment, even if Code Veronica has a very like early 2000s sci-fi original TV show vibe to it as a title. I kind of get why they got out the code, but it kind of bums me out a little bit.
Well, in Japan, they are calling it Biohazard Re-Veronica, so capital RE:Veronica. I kind of like that. But originally it was Code Veronica both in Japan and America. So yeah, it is just Resident Evil Veronica now. I understand why they simplified the title, but I do love the title Code Veronica. It's so stupid. But anyway, I'm psyched. Because honestly, like, before they did the 4 remake, this is the one, because this one, I would, yeah, absolutely, this does, like, quote-unquote, need a remake more than 4 did. Now, it turns out they made such a good 4 remake that, like, it doesn't matter. But I am very excited to see how this all comes together, and just, because this is definitely, I think, a Resident Evil that too many people have overlooked over the years, because they kind of assume it's a weird spin-off, and it's not. It's absolutely one of the mainline titles, and I'm glad it's getting its day in the sun.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's interesting, and it's more obvious in the way that the Japanese trailer does it, because I did watch the Japanese trailer because I thought the English voice acting in the trailer was a little bit weird with the old
It's really
lady.
bad.
Felt like just miscast, and unfortunately, at least as of the time I watched it, there was no Japanese language version of the trailer. But that's the version I watched out of an attempt to find the Japanese dub. But the REV is positioned to look like Resident Evil 5, which when I thought about it for a second, I'm like, well, if you take it as Resident Evil 1 remake, Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake, Resident Evil 4 remake, this is Resident Evil 5 remake. It just happens to not be a remake of the game called Resident Evil 5, but it's the 5th Resident Evil remake if you count the original Resident Evil 1 remake.
It is, even though Veronica came out before 4, so it's weird. It's more of a 3 replacement. But no, that's interesting. That's a fun way to think about it. All right, we had some news from Studio MDHR, who are the creators of Cuphead, and they announced on the stream a new Cuphead game, and then on their site, actually 2 new Cuphead games. So the one that we got a trailer for was Mighty Cuphead Adventure. The graphics are specifically Sega Master System 8-bit graphics, because the game was designed to the specifications and in the coding language of the Sega Master System, and they'll even be selling physical cartridges when the game comes out that will run on, if you've got a Master System or, a recent, system that has recreated the Master System, it'll run that game for you. This one is described on their site as being made by a smaller team within the studio, while the full studio is working on a traditional hand-drawn Cuphead game that is in early development. Presumably that's a more straightforward sequel, but we have no other details, and the Mighty Cuphead Adventure game seems further along. It's the only one we have footage of. It looks fun. It's taking the Cuphead sort of art style and putting it into the Sega Master System visuals, and it looks fun. I like Cuphead is a great game. I'm excited to see that they are doing more with it.
Yeah, I just am kind of tickled pink at the idea that a new Sega Master System game had a trailer at the Summer Game Fest in 2026 is just very funny to me. The Sega Master System is just it's such a fun console because it's not like the most obscure console in the world, but it is, the kind of ill-fated rival to the Famicom / the NES, which were much more dominant in the 8-bit space, whereas like the Genesis / Mega Drive for Sega made a much bigger splash than the Master System ever did. So there's something just very funny about them picking that it's not a Famicom. That would be passé, a game that could run on a Famicom / NES. Let's do the Sega Master System. I hope next year they are making like a PC Engine game or something like that, just to like really put out something obscure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we then let's go through another couple of these. We've got Alien Isolation 2 was announced, long rumored. It's going to be PC, PS5, Xbox, Switch 2. I still have never played Alien Isolation. I need to. I know I would love it. I love Alien. That game is supposed to be awesome. I need to play it, especially now that there's a sequel. So maybe that'll give me the kick in the ass to finally do it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. That like as a game, it's one of those. I bought it forever ago when it was on sale. I've been meaning to play it forever. Have not gotten around to it. It seems obviously incredibly good. Maybe now is the time.
Yeah. Gen Atlas was shown off. This is the new game from Fumito Ueda, the creator of Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox. Shamefully, I have to say I have never played Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, but I know the incredible reputation they have, and I am happy for all of the Fumito Ueda fans out there.
Yeah, the only one of his games I've played is The Last Guardian, which is the last game he made, which is fucking awesome. This trailer looked really cool. It did shock me though. There is a part where the character has like a thing on his back that I thought was a staff or something, and then there's a point in the trailer where you see it's actually a gun and he's shooting, and there's like a reticle on screen. Like, oh my god, he's had sword fighting and stuff in his games, like in Shadow of the Colossus, but I've never seen a third-person shooter camera with a reticle in a Fumito game. So that's I'm sure that's not a big part. It's not like Gears of War or something, but I was a little bit amused by that.
Awesome. All right. Then we got some news from Sega and Ryoga Gotoku Studio. They have 2 games that they announced. One is a very baffling game called Stranger Than Heaven, which is a new open world game. I was about to say new open world Yakuza game because it has Yakuza in it, but it's not from the Yakuza series. But it guest stars Snoop Dogg and a digitally resurrected Tupac Shakur, and it's coming out January 15th, 2027. But also, we have Virtua Fighter Crossroads being developed by RGG Studio. That's coming next year. It is the 6th Virtua Fighter game and the first original entry since Virtua Fighter 5 in 2006. I thought Virtua Fighter Crossroads looked cool. I did not know what to make of Stranger Than Heaven.
Well, Stranger Than Heaven's this is like the 4th or 5th trailer for that game. That game's been around the block. Because it is a little bit hard to make heads or tails of exactly what it is, because it seems like the premise is you are playing as someone who's either like immortal or you're traveling in time or something, but there are a bunch of different eras of Japanese history that you're playing through. And this is the first time they've shown this stuff with Tupac and Snoop Dogg. There is also a character that is made in the likeness of the Japanese actor Sugawara Bunta, who passed away forever ago, but he was in a bunch of the most famous Yakuza movies, probably the most famous ones, The Battles Without Honor and Humanity, that series, and a bunch of other ones that are set in the kind of post-war 1950s era that a lot of stuff from this game seems to be set in. So that is the other, like... Because it's kind of weird, because that's this for this game, and then also one thing I didn't mention with Onimusha, I mean, we've known this because this was in the original trailer for the new Onimusha, is that the main character of that game is modeled after the likeness of Toshiro Mifune, and the Onimusha games historically have modeled their characters after actors both living and dead. And so there is like a weird, digital necromancy going on with both of those games. There is something, though, maybe it's just because we're Americans, but there's something about the Tupac thing that it just, in your gut, feels different. Also, it's obviously he's more, not recently deceased, but more recently deceased. And so there is something, it feels weird, and it's a very odd thing, particularly in this game, the game that is like a Japanese developed game that is set at different eras in Japanese history of the 20th century, of like, why would you digitally resurrect Tupac? It's like very, very, very bizarre to me.
To be fair, Tupac has been being resurrected a bunch. There's like the Tupac hologram at concerts and stuff. Yeah, it's weird. I will say the Toshiro Mifune thing does not bother me because, to be perfectly honest, most samurai and most video games are modeled to some degree on Toshiro Mifune. Like, he's an actor whose visage became so archetypal in and of itself that it's like, I'm kind of okay with it. It's like, I don't know. It's like if you made a detective game and had Humphrey Bogart kind of style main character, it wouldn't bother me, Yeah,
I do think there is like, it is a weird thing where I think there's also something about it being a video game that makes it feel slightly different, that there's some sort of like spectrum of like, for instance, if I read a comic book and there was a character in the comic book that was drawn to look like an actor who's been dead for some time, I wouldn't bat an eye at it at all. If I watch Star Wars Rogue One and I see their digitally resurrected version of Grand Moff Tarkin, I'm like, oh my god, this feels so gross. There's some sort of spectrum of like, how removed from it is it as like trying to be a depiction of an actual live person. And so like and I do think like video games nowadays exist in this weird space where they can be realistic enough that it starts to feel a little bit more like that movie version, where it feels like this kind of like digital puppetry of a dead person, rather than just a depiction of a pop culture icon, which is like, I think, very accepted in something that is just like hand drawn or something of that nature.
Yeah, well, we shall see. This game looks weird. All right, moving on, we've got Sonic Racing Crossworlds, which is a really cool game. I actually got that a couple months ago and I've been playing it. It's like the new Sonic version of Mario Kart, but its big hook is that, when you're in the middle of races, you go into other tracks and then come back to the main track, which is kind of cool. It's using like modern SSD speeds to pull that off. And then it also has crossover characters from, in the base game, it's like other Sega stuff. So like Joker from Persona 5, Ichiban Kasuga from the Ryuga Kotoku games. But then they also have DLC with characters from outside of the Sega staple, and they've had stuff like you can race as SpongeBob and Patrick in the Patty Mobile from SpongeBob, and that's fun and stuff like that. But they announced Year 2 DLC, and this is sweet. We are getting DLC for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, where you will be able to do something involving Godzilla and Neon Genesis Evangelion, and I think that kicks ass.
It's fucking wild. The Godzilla one is he's just in a stage. Like, I don't know if he will be a racer. I mean, maybe Manila, the son of Godzilla. Maybe you can put him in a little race
That'd be
car.
so funny. That'd be great.
Who knows? The Neon Genesis Evangelion one is the one that is particularly hilarious because that is both, there's a stage that has like Eva, like one of the Evangelions in it, but also at the very least there is a shot in the trailer. And I could have obviously just done the screenshot. I tried to just find someone. I was shocked I could immediately find the screenshot online because the only ones I found were cropped, where you have Asuka and Ayanami Rei are racers in race carts, but everyone cropped the screenshot and cut Sonic out of the screenshot. Because the funny thing isn't just that Asuka and Ayanami are in a kart racing game, it's that they're in a Sonic the Hedgehog kart racing game, and having them racing right next to Sonic is the thing that is funny. Neon Genesis Evangelion, I don't think it had a kart racing game, but I would not at all be shocked if there was one that I just didn't know about, because Genesis Evangelion did everything in the 90s and early 2000s. I am delighted at the idea of you being able to play as Ayanami and Asuka. I think it is very funny and 100% on brand that Shinji was nowhere to be seen in the trailer, because you can't get that fucker to go into go-kart. He's, too scared, he can't do
Sean,
it.
here's my pitch. They should have Shinji as a playable racer, but he has a condition where at random points in the race, he will just get depressed and pull off to the side of the road, and you have to wait about 30 seconds to race again. That's what they should do with Shinji.
Yes, and you just have Gendo coming over the radios like he's useless. Like, send Ayanami out. He just races Ayanami for a little bit until Shinji, someone slaps sense into him. But it did amuse me that nominally the main character of Neon Genesis Evangelion was not featured in any of the stuff they showed with the EVA collaboration. I would not be surprised if he is one of the racers, but I also would not be surprised if he is not. I would put Misato in before, or I can't remember her name, but the new girl that was in the Rebirth ones that Shinji ultimately hooks up with. I think they're probably on the line before you actually put Shinji as a playable character in the game.
Yeah. All right, we got news for Monster Hunter Wilds, which I know you love, Sean. The big new DLC is called Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance. It'll have new monsters, new areas, and new story content, as well as including master rank content. And it will be coming to Switch 2, though the release date is TBD.
Yes, so the trailer they showed was just the Ascendance stuff for Monster Hunter Wilds, which looks cool. I know that in the Monster Hunter community, Wilds is a little bit of a controversial game. I really loved it. I'm actually excited that they're doing more story stuff, because that was the thing. I thought that game was very well paced with the way the story stuff interwove with your hunting of the monsters, the eponymous hunting of the monsters from Monster Hunter. And and I did play a decent chunk, more than I did for World, after finishing the story. Again, partially because I think the game is just better paced and structured for that. But I did eventually fall off. I played like some of the first couple of updates they did when they added some new monsters, but I haven't played in quite some time. So this looked cool, and I'm excited for the new story content. The hot blacksmith lady that's in the game got a new haircut, and I think that looks cool. And there's just something about like the sense of the passage of time for the characters. Like, they've got new outfits, they got a new fucking like look going, they got a new hairdo. This is cool. It just reminded me that I'm very fond of that game. And it was afterwards that they announced that Monster Hunter Wilds will also be coming to Switch 2, but that I assume that the Ascendance DLC will be part of that at some point, but they did not say when. In Monster Hunter Wilds, I think one thing that the game has been rightfully criticized for is it has lots of performance issues. This is one of the reasons why I got the PS5 Pro. It's because I played the demo of Monster Hunter Wilds, and it was just so shit on the base PS5 that I'm like, well, this is a game I know I'm really going to want to play. I was interested in getting a Pro anyways and wanted to give my dad my old PS5 so he could play some PS5 games. And so that was one of the things that really pushed me to get a Pro. So I'm interested to see how it runs on the Switch 2. I'm sure that they can do it, but I'm also sure that there will be some interesting technical things along the way for however the Switch 2 presents, because no version of that game is technically perfect, to say the least.
It is interesting, though, because for the Switch 1, Capcom treated Monster Hunter as a separate line on Switch.
Yes, with Rise.
So it got its own games. And yeah, so there was Monster Hunter Rise that did eventually get ported up to the other platforms, but that was a Switch exclusive developed. It was specifically developed as like kind of a pseudo handheld Monster Hunter for Nintendo Switch. But now for Switch 2, they're just giving it the major full fat, like, current gen Monster Hunter, and I wonder if that like continues, because we're still doing like the Monster Hunter Stories games, and those are sort of aimed at like the Switch style audience, but for the mainline ones, it seems like we probably won't get a Wilds-esque thing again.
Yeah,
or not Wilds, Rise-esque thing.
Yeah, exactly. I am curious what this means for the like traditional handheld, the Monster Hunter portable kind of lineage of games as well, if that means that that's kind of done. I mean, we know that there is another team that is the team that made Monster Hunter Rise. I think the question mark is like, what does that game look like? Is it in the more open world model of Monster Hunter Wilds? Like, yeah, I'm kind of curious about that as well.
Yeah. All right, TMNT, The Last Ronin, that game was announced years ago. There's been no news. It was re-announced, now being developed by Platinum Games, which is cool, but we saw none of the game. This game is probably years and years off. Yeah. But this is the one based on the famous comic book, TMNT, The Last Ronin. And I know people were really excited when it was announced, and then I think a lot of people assumed it was canceled, but now it's by Platinum. Who the hell knows? We then had Gundam Rogue Orbit, a reveal trailer for a Mobile Suit Gundam game that was really just a CG cinematic with a little bit of gameplay at the end. Hard to tell exactly what kind of game it will be. It's made in Unreal Engine 5. It's developed by somebody within Bandai Namco. We don't know who. Bandai Namco is a obviously big developer, but it's coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox in 2027. I thought this trailer was okay. Honestly, nothing about it really screamed Gundam outside of kind of the vague design of the mobile suit, so it didn't really do anything for me, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, narratively, it's more like they're fighting maybe alien monsters. Like, it's not like a traditional Gundam, it's a war between people. It had a little bit more of a, like, where, fighting alien invaders and their big weird monsters kind of thing, which is not to say that Gundam has never done that. There are manga that's done that. That's sort of a little bit, Gundam Age plays with that idea, even if that is not actually what the setup is in Gundam Age.
There's the Gundam 00 movie, but that's not really like, that's its own thing, because the way the aliens are, it's not this kind of like battle. Yeah.
Yeah. That's more almost 2001: A Space Odyssey-esque, like there's some sort of unknowable entity. So I'm with you. This didn't do a lot for me. I do think that Bandai Namco is just such a conservative developer in the video game space, and I think that is like, for some stuff that like serves them well, they've got a lot of IPs, they put out lots of pretty cheap games for those IPs, and for some stuff I think that kind of makes sense. I do think that they are maybe starting to kind of miss a window with Gundam, where Gundam could use like a really good, I'm not asking for a like $200 million Sony style AAA, like not that budget level. That's not particularly realistic, but something that's a bigger scale, more mainline game, because Gundam is having such a moment in the 2020s. Like, everything else in the world has gone to shit. Gundam is like the one thing that's been consistently really good and very successful, and in some metrics more successful than it's ever been as a franchise. And it is starting to frustrate me that it just feels like we are still getting the like weird, the most you can get is Gundam Breaker 4, or you can get this Gundam Rogue Orbit, and there's not something that's a more proper use of the IP in the video game space. It's starting to get a little bit on my nerves.
At the very least, why isn't there a new Gundam Musou game? That would be like, there's Musou is also more popular than it's ever been. I understand that Koei Tecmo can only make so many Musou games, but like, that would feel like the right thing to do with Gundam right now, and I think that would be a big hit. So I don't get this. Anyway, we have that. We saw the game Crossfire, which is a new cover shooter from That's No Moon, a developer founded by Naughty Dog and Infinity Ward vets. No release window yet, but that one did get some attention after the show, with a lot of people, like journalists were invited to play it, and there were interviews, and it sounds like it's a pretty cool game. A lot of people talking about how it's like kind of reinventing the cover shooter. It's like, because obviously the cover shooter has kind of been Gears of War-esque since Gears of War, and this seems like a more fluid version of it, and I'm excited to see more from this, and promising, new developer, too.
Yeah, I thought actually the trailer was quite good. Like, the narrative setup seemed interesting, that there's some sort of conflict between two sides, and there's a female character and male character that are seemingly on opposite sides of the war, and they end up having to come together somehow. and form kind of like some sort of like duo. It is on the in the gameplay section. I remember you're mostly seeing it from the female character's perspective. I assume you play as both of them, or it might have co-op. I don't know. But the male character had the word cross above his head, and I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be like maybe there's like a gameplay thing you can trigger that's indicating. But I would love it if the characters' code names were what the guy was Cross and her code name was Fire. I don't know if that's the case, but I really want it to be. I would just be so happy if the game was called Crossfire. I know that this is connected to, there's that whole, it's like a whole IP that's big in East Asia and stuff like that. But over here, it's a brand new thing. I want the guy to be Cross. I want the girl to be Fire. I want the game to be called Crossfire. But it was a cool trailer. I'm kind of into the vibe it was putting out there.
Absolutely. We got details on Street Fighter VI Year 4 characters. They told us we're going to be getting Yasmin, Bosch, and Arjun, alongside Tifa from Final Fantasy VII will be jumping from Tekken over to Street Fighter. This is seemingly
she was not ever in Tekken. The thing is that like everyone was like Tifa should be in Tekken, but she was never in it.
Okay.
It's a thing that people...
I saw a lot of chatter about this, so yeah.
People have been trying to kind of like wish that into reality forever, but Tekken 8 is a game that seemingly, as someone who hasn't played it, but only looking at it from the outside and like watching content around it, that game seems like it's completely imploded. And so Tifa is now in Street Fighter, which is not I know that this was kind of leaked, but regularly nobody would anticipate that, but it is kind of fucking sick. But it is a pretty interesting announcement because the other characters, Yasmin and Arjun, I believe are totally new characters. Bosch was in the story mode. He's in World Tour, which it took me like a moment to realize that when I watched the trailer. Like, he looks really familiar. Then it was Bosch. I'm like, Bosch, man, then it's like, right, he's the guy in the World Tour mode who's like your buddy and he gets brainwashed with psycho power or whatever. It's that character. And so it does feel like this is a update where, one, these characters are coming out a little bit quicker than most of the Street Fighter 6 DLC characters have been. And it does, just the way they positioned the trailer, it was like, hey, here are some new characters. Here's a guy that I assume they're totally redoing all the stuff for Bosch, but he's technically a character in the story mode. And then here's where we spent all the money on this DLC, which is we got Tifa. Because I can't imagine that is a cheap character to get from Square Enix. They're very protective of their IP, kind of famously. They do not do lots of crossover character kind of stuff, despite Final Fantasy being very popular. And so it feels like a pretty big thing that Tifa's in there. And this is just a big reminder for me that I really do at some point need to get back into Street Fighter 6 because they've added so many really cool characters, including some of the crossover characters like Terry from Fatal Fury. But I played so much of that game in its like at launch and in the launch window, but have never come back for any of the DLC characters. Tifa, despite my dislike for the remake games, I love Tifa. And so if they can, there's a cool version of Tifa in Street Fighter, that's a pretty cool thing to me.
Yeah, I need to get back into it too. I actually picked up Street Fighter 6 for Nintendo Switch 2 because it was on a really good sale, and I just got the base game. And I need to decide, do I want to stick with the Switch 2 version or the PS5 version? The nice thing about Switch is I do have more controllers for Switch. Like, I have a really good Genesis-style 6-button, and I've been wanting to go in and try, like, getting into classic controls on Street Fighter with that. Because that would be it's basically a Genesis controller, and it would be perfect for that game. With that, it's got that perfect D-pad, and then it's got the 6-button layout and all of that stuff. So I just got to decide. It is a really good port for Switch 2. If people have not tried it yet, it's very on par with Capcom's other stuff, except that it has just a rock-solid, perfect 60 FPS, and then, very good image quality. So it's cool that that's out there, and this is all coming to that, too. So Street Fighter 6 is awesome. We should get back into Street Fighter more.
Yes, absolutely. That game has just been continuing to be hugely successful. Like it continually improves on its previous maximum like CCU count on Steam, which is one of the only metrics we like regularly get on like a vague sense of how successful a game has been. And Street Fighter 6 has just like continually been very, very popular. I'm curious how, I don't think they have recently said anything about its sales figures, but it must be quite a big seller. I'm sure at some point soon we're going to get some big milestone it will have passed because it's a very successful game.
All right, Stellar Blade is getting a sequel, Stellar Blade Blood Rain. Maybe a ways off as a sequel to that game, as this was sort of a development announcement trailer, but that is coming. I know people really liked that game, so that's cool. We got The Wolf Among Us 2 re-announced, however many re's we need for that, which is from I forget what the studio is called now, but it's like the Telltale veteran studio that got the rights to this, and they're doing the finally Wolf Among Us 2. They're doing a remaster of the original Wolf Among Us. I don't really know or care about any of this stuff, but I know people like that game, so good for them.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. I'm going to look it up because it's like, God, The Wolf Among Us. The Wolf Among Us originally started coming out in October 2013. It's a 13-year-old game. It's like, yeah, like I just feel like, hey, for people who are way into this, I'm happy that they're still seemingly working on this stuff, but it just feels like at a certain point, I would not get my expectations up because this has just been such a weird, belabored project that the studio died, and then like a phoenix, like it came up back again as another studio, and it got the IP rights that has been working on this forever. It's just weird.
Yeah. We've got an announcement for Attack on Titan 3. And if you're wondering what that is, this is the third game in the Musou-style series from Omega Force and Koei Tecmo. The last AOT game was years ago. It was 2018. That's before MAPPA took over the Attack on Titan anime. So there has not been a new Attack on Titan game since the whole final season, which was really three seasons, aired. And this is planned to be like the big final Attack on Titan game. It'll adapt the full anime, do everything. And I'm looking forward to that because I think I've kind of wanted to try out those other Attack on Titan Musou games because obviously Attack on Titan seems like it should be great fodder for a video game. But I'm glad we're getting like the whole game, the whole story of the series in one game. That seems cool. I'm glad this is getting made. Seems like it'll be fun.
Yeah, it seems cool. I love that they just called it Attack on Titan 3. That's such a funny title to me.
Yes.
They didn't give it a subtitle or anything. It's like, no, it's just Attack on Titan 3. Nothing else to clarify that around the title of the game. It's just the third Attack on Titan. I don't know what you're expecting.
Then we've got some Star Wars games announced. Star Wars Zero Company, not announced. I think we already knew about these, but we got more details. So Star Wars Zero Company, which is the tactical Star Wars game, is coming August 27th. That's PS5, PC, and Xbox. And then Star Wars Galactic Racer got an official story trailer, whatever the fuck that means for a racing game. That's coming October 6th. I don't know much about either of these. Zero Company looked kind of cool because it looked kind of tactics style.
It's XCOM. It's
XCOM. That's what I meant. Yeah, it's
yeah.
XCOM style. Yeah.
Yeah. Zero Company. I thought that trailer was like really good because again, it is like literally it is XCOM style. Anakin Skywalker pops up very briefly at the very end of the trailer, and I was very frustrated that they didn't have a voice there because I'm hoping that they just cast Matt Lanter, the voice actor from the Clone Wars show, because that would be pretty cool. Because it's all set in the Clone Wars era, which I think is like a really good setting for this kind of game in the world of Star Wars. And yeah, like Zero Company looked very cool. Galactic Racer I continue to be interested in as like a game that we just don't get lots of games like that anymore. I've said it before. I know this, I'd said this when we talked about this game when it was originally announced, but I want in a racing game to be able to blow up the other cars. Like I want to be able to crash into them and have them explode. And it is maybe like for me, the Achilles heel of the Forza Horizon games, and why when I've tried those with Game Pass before, I just couldn't get into them, is it's just a bit too dainty. It's like I want fucking fire and smoke. I want fucking hell on the streets when I'm racing. And unfortunately, there's just Burnout died as a franchise. Need for Speed kind of turned to shit. So you just don't get games like that. Need for Speed also isn't always really like that. And this very much is like these motherfuckers explode, and that's good. So
yeah,
I'm curious about it.
No, Star Wars Zero Company, definitely. That is one. It's coming out end of August, so not quite in the September pileup. We'll see if I have time for it, but I'm always down for an XCOM-style game, and it does look... The graphics looked very nice, so for this kind of thing. So, looked cool. Here's something for me, Sean. Saw! The film series is getting a new 3-versus-1 asymmetric multiplayer game, Saw Genesis, co-developed by Anshar Studios and Broken Mirror Games, published by Bloober Team, who did the Silent Hill 2 remake and Chronos: The New Dawn. And the whole trailer did have voiceover from Tobin Bell, Jigsaw himself. They got him to do that, which is cool, because for a lot of these, for a lot of these slasher games, there is no actor associated with the slasher monster, like Michael Myers or something, but obviously Tobin Bell is the voice of Saw. I don't know if this will be any good, but I like the idea of an ace. What I would always want out of Saw, honestly, is I would want some kind of sim game where instead of like simulating a city, you're building traps and then you get to like spring them on people. That's what I think a Saw game would be. Maybe this will be fun, maybe it won't be. These asymmetric multiplayer games obviously have a mixed run of late. But I at least appreciated that the Saw aesthetic is there. They've got Tobin Bell. It was very clearly inspired by Saw 10, which was the latest one and also one of the best Saw movies. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you that a Saw game should be like, I want a tech tree where I'm like researching even more disgusting bathrooms to be able to put into my Saw lair. And it's like, how many, like, oh, I need to buy more like dirty syringes, like I want that. That's the game I want.
Yeah. And then we also have a Star Trek game, Star Trek Shadow Frontier, also developed by Bluebird. Is this Bluebird? Yeah, Bluebird Games, yes. Bluebird team, in collaboration with Paramount Games. The trailer says it's coming soon for PS5 series, Xbox Series, Switch 2, and PC. The trailer had kind of a horror vibe. Apparently, Bluebird did make a Star Trek horror game called Star Trek Infection last year, and it featured the next-generation character Ro Laren with original actor Michelle Forbes returning for the voice. Not as cool as Tobin Bell, but, that's nice.
Yeah, this was. I added this to the notes. It wasn't in the actual. It was like the evening of the Summer Game Fest. There was like a surprise. Also, Bloober's making 5 other things because there's like Bloober's just involved in a billion projects. And this was just like a surprise. Hey, they're doing a Star Trek thing. The trailer was actually kind of cool. Who knows if it will be a good game or not, but I was like, oh, that's good. And hey, they're, it's a weird kind of deep cut. Be like, hey, it's not a totally new character. It's also not any of like the main characters. It's a character that I at least vaguely remember from the amount of TNG I watched when I was a kid and it was just on TV. But yeah, I thought it was an amusing announcement.
All right. Well, that's it for Summer Game Fest. You want to move on to the Xbox Game Showcase?
Yes, let's move on to the Xbox Game Showcase, which I watched a couple of these trailers a little bit before we started recording. You apparently sat down and watched the whole thing because you needed to make the notes, and I appreciate that you took that because I didn't want to. We didn't have a conversation about it, but I had faith that you would do it, and I was like, I'm just going to not worry about it.
What's funny is I actually had a thought halfway through. I'm like, I hope Sean isn't doing like his own separate set of notes because that would be so much wasted work. But apparently I was the opposite problem. You didn't even watch the goddamn thing.
Super Robot Wars Alpha on my Vita. that's what I was doing while you were writing these notes.
Well, let's start with the macro conversation here because the first thing they showed was Gears of War E-Day, a game that we knew was coming but we'd never seen gameplay of. We got a gameplay trailer. It was showing basically what I presume is the opening level with a younger Marcus Phoenix in civilian clothes running through the city streets fighting the emerging Locust Horde. Kind of got like Resident Evil 2, Last of Us, the beginning of the Last of Us vibes in terms of like ruined city, zombie kinds of things coming out, all of that stuff. What I thought was actually kind of interesting is that aesthetically it had a bunch of differences. Like, it's kind of weird to see Marcus he's like in a hoodie and jeans, which is very different from Marcus Phoenix. But otherwise it played exactly like every other Gears of War game, which kind of felt weird given this is supposed to be a prequel. Like, I didn't know they already had the chainsaw gun before the Locust came out. That's weird to me. I thought they would have invented that for the Locusts, but no, it's just a Gears of War game.
Are you telling me you didn't read all the comics set in the Pendulum Wars or whatever the fuck the lore of Gears of War is? To
be honest, Sean, that's a series I skipped the cutscenes of. We had all that controversy recently when the writer of the new what video game is it? It's some movie based on a video game, and he's like, it was Far Cry. The writer of the new Far Cry movie said, we've got a new story for this because honestly, in the games, story, honestly, this was taken a little out of context. What he was trying to explain was that story works different in games versus movies, so it's better to just write a new story, which I broadly agree with him on. But he made the controversial comment, people mostly just skip the cutscenes anyway. And I'm like, look, I don't know about every game. There are some games where that is true. Gears of War is a game where that is true. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly no lore expert on Gears of War, but I do know that there is something called the Pendulum Wars, and dudes were fighting dudes before the Locusts showed up to fight the dudes.
All right.
And that is the extent of it. I believe they invented the chainsaws not for the monsters, not for the monsters emerging from underground, but for the monsters emerging from within us, because who is the true evil if it is not man?
Anyway, this game looked good. It looked fun. I like Gears of War a lot. I just want to play new Gears of Wars. It's coming out October 6th, 2026. But Then Asha Sharma came out for her first appearance at one of these. She said Xbox was built around the spirit of creativity and heart. Sure. Only fitting that we return to Xbox, we return to Gears. And then she announced that Gears will be an Xbox console exclusive. This had been reported the night before because Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb, who is obviously well-sourced, had said that this was going to be announced and that this decision was made in the last 24 hours. After the show, he also tweeted, so yeah, there's a basically finished version of Gears for PlayStation sitting on a drive, and apparently even Xbox employees were blindsided by this announcement because many of them had been working on the PS5 version of this. As the show went on, I started noting, okay, well, is this like a new strategy? Sean, in total, they showed off. I did the count. I counted 28 games at this show, and exactly 2 of them are Xbox exclusives. One is Gears of War E-Day, one is Clockwork Revolution, which looked awful. That game, honestly, you should be embarrassed to put that trailer out. That was fucking garbage. But anyway, those are your 2 games. 7% of everything shown in the Xbox 25th Anniversary Showcase event is an Xbox console exclusive, one of which has a finished PS5 version coming out. Why even be a company? Honestly, why not just take a fucking magic 8-ball and every time you have to make an executive decision, shake it and then base it off of that? That would be roughly as smart as Asha Sharma's current strategy, which seems to be responding to Twitter trolls and doing what they want, also known as the Elon Musk strategy for running Twitter. I don't know. Hope it works out for her. This is fucking dumb as shit. I do not understand what these fucking morons are doing anymore.
Yeah, no, the last 12 hours has been, like, wild for video game news, not because of the things in the showcase, but because of this specific thing. Because, yeah, I caught that, I wasn't watching the kind of Neo Giant Bomb, the kind of modern version of Giant Bomb with Jeff Grubb. I wasn't watching their Not-E3 live streams, but I saw that news when it came up, like, pretty quickly after it came up. It was like reading forum threads about it, just like people discussing it back and forth. And there were Bill Kuhn, who's a like well-known leaker that has sources in the retail market. He did all this like investigating that showed that like places like Walmart had in the back end PS5 versions. Like Peggy had the PS5 version rated, and so on the Peggy website you could see that PS5 was listed as one of the platforms. So I think this, like, you know, I would basically take Jeff Grubb's word for it, but there's a lot of evidence that supports that this was a very, very recently made choice, which is just it's very fascinating to me because, I mean, we've talked about a lot in this Xbox saga that, you know, exclusives are important for a console, and that one of the things that has killed the Xbox platform is that it abandoned its console exclusive strategy. This does not fix that, this thing with Gears of War, and it's sort of baffling.
Sean, you don't think doing one video game, having Gears of War exclusive but Halo not, but after you already put Gears of War Reloaded on PlayStation last year, but while you're putting everything out, you don't think that sells to people? You don't?
No, here's like the range of things that's confused. So here's, because like the thing with the so far the Asha Sharma sort of run of Xbox, which I know we're only a couple months in, but it's been a very loud couple months from Xbox. Like, one thing that did not change was the playbook of let's be in the news all the time forever and just exhaust every motherfucker that's interested in the video game industry. And I just hate that we have talked about Xbox so much on this fucking podcast, even though we don't fucking play it. Do you even own a current Xbox?
No, I don't.
Sell yours?
I don't. I sold mine. So, like, and honestly, this is what's so baffling. They would have had a sale for Gears of War. I would have 100% bought that game on my PlayStation. I was ready to buy it. And they're like, nope, you've got to go buy. And that's the thing. No one's buying Xboxes anymore. Yeah. We have hard sales date on this. That has cratered, and the prices are now so high that it's not going to... Is there assumption that people are going to start buying $1,000 Xboxes because... Yeah. They put out one Gears of War game? Fucking lunatics. Lunatics.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, you know, like, I do think that the current Xbox strategy has been self-evidently disastrous. And we've talked about it forever on this podcast. Because, again, they're very loud and they just create lots of news all the time. They have for fucking since 2016 when Phil Spencer became very visible as the head of Xbox. But the thing is that, like, their current strategy, where they were heading with it, even if I don't personally really think it was going to work, at least there was like, there's a logic, and there was like a clear attempt of like, that they have been running a marathon since 2016 with this strategy involving Game Pass, putting everything out on PC day and date, like their xCloud streaming service. And then like the thing that they've been arriving at is what their next console is going to be, which unless Asha Sharma listens to a bunch of people on Twitter and decides, you know what, we're not going to make it a PC thing anymore. We're going to cut that functionality out and just like make it a traditional Xbox, which honestly might be possible. Who fucking knows at this point? I don't know. I did not think that they would have walked this back with the Gears thing. It's just crazy. But assuming that they're going to keep the Project Helix console, the thing that we basically know it's going to be, which is a PC with a console-style front end that you're meant to plug into your console that gives you the Xbox Windows Game Store, whatever the fuck it's currently called, but that you could also load up the Epic Game Store and Steam and anything else, people are going to be Steam. I'd say Epic Game Store because the guy, Epic Man, said it at some point, and that's like one of the things we've heard is someone basically confirming behind the scenes that this is going on. Like, that pitch for that console, I don't personally believe in it because I think the console is going to be too expensive and all that kind of stuff. But it is in line with a long series of strategic moves that Xbox has been making since 2016 for 10 years. And so again, like in my mind, it's like a marathon. And the hilarious thing is that this is like, we're right at the end of that marathon. Almost at the finish line. That is like the end point of what this strategy is trying to lead to, which is a device that leans into the strategy, that abandons the idea of being a traditional video game console entirely, which is what all of these moves around Game Pass and PC day and date and all that has been building up to, is we are not interested in being a regular console. They're about to release a device seemingly that's going to be the fulfillment of that strategy. And right before they cross the finish line, they're like, you know what? And they stop and take one step backwards. They're like, and this is going to fix it. This is going to be, now we're going to be at a different finish line tomorrow that's over on the other side of the city rather than the one we were heading towards. It's so weird. It feels like this game is going to be sent out to die. It's a franchise that's very beloved to me. Like, I have such fond memories of 2006 getting Gears of War on my Xbox 360. Like, it was a foundational game for that generation of consoles for a reason. But this franchise has been on its last legs for a bit. If Halo has been on life support, Gears of War is basically halfway in the fucking grave at this point. It is such a dire franchise in terms of like the public mind share and stuff like that. It's in a genre that people don't fucking make. People don't make cover shooters anymore. That's like kind of not a thing anymore. And it's, I think one of the, it's a franchise where Gears of War 5 was a game that ended on a cliffhanger, and then they seemingly have abandoned that because they need to generate interest in it again, so they're making a fucking prequel to get back to basics and have it be Marcus and Dom and all this shit. Like, it's clearly a franchise that is not in a great place, and if there's anything that I think could maybe save this game, it's going to be on PlayStation, and there's a whole different audience that could pick up this game. And so I like, especially for a game that historically multiplayer has been a big component of it, which is one of the things that multiplayer games benefit tremendously from having as large an audience as possible. Like, well, the game that this would make sense to me with would be Fable. I would understand from a certain perspective that if your thing is we're trying to make Xbox exclusives and we're trying to like retrain the audience back onto exclusives, I don't know if that will ever work, but if you're going to do that, Fable, a single-player RPG game in a, franchise that Xbox people love that goes back to the heyday of the series, in the heyday of the property with the Xbox 360 and Fable 2, which was a big game and a great game, and you make Fable console exclusive and you don't bring it to PS5, I'd be like, sure, why not? Gears of War E-Day, when you have already made a PS5 game, is a game with a big multiplayer component that wants as big an audience as possible that I assume will have microtransactions and all that kind of shit in it. And you're just basically saying, you know what? We're just going to scrap that PS5 version and we're just going to put it out and make it console exclusive to like make a point online to like the online fanboys. It just is madness to me. Like, I think Xbox making an effort to do exclusives again, sure, you can try that. This doesn't make any sense to me as like how you start to try that. You're putting this game out on a console that nobody wants, that fucking nobody bought, and anyone who's going to play it is going to buy it on PC because this game is still day one on Xbox Game Pass. This game is still day and date on PC. It doesn't matter whether or not it's coming to PlayStation. It's not going to expand anybody's interest in Xbox because that died well before they started their multi-platform thing. The reason they started the multi-platform thing was because nobody was buying Xboxes. It's like, this is a weird chicken the egg thing. If they seem to think that like they started the multi-platform thing and then everyone stopped buying Xbox Series consoles, that is not the order of events that occurred there. So yeah, this is like a fascinating decision to me. I kind of love it as someone who's like likes to follow game industry news and thinks it's like this is fucking a crazy fucking choice to make. But it is a crazy choice to make, and I don't think it will work out for this game. It makes me kind of worried for the Coalition as a studio. This is a fucking weird fucking thing that they're doing.
Well, and I'll put a finer point on this because I have played all of the Coalition Gears of War games. And you made the Halo comparison, and I know what you mean on some level. The Coalition has done so much better by Gears of War than 343 has ever come close to doing by Halo. Gears of War 4 is a solid Gears of War game. I think Gears 5 is a great Gears of War game. Gears Tactics was a really fun spin-off. They've got this. They've been doing everything you could ask a team like this to be doing. And now I have always assumed that the reason they made it Gears of War E-Day as a prequel was in part because they knew they were moving off of Xbox, whether that's to PC, to PlayStation, whatever, and the time had come for an expanding audience, and so you do your day one prequel kind of thing. That would be the right thing to do with your PS5, we're expanding the audience, and now that team is told they've already finished the game, no, you don't get to expand your audience. Fuck you. That's what it feels like from Asha Sharma and the team, is like, fuck you. Because they even gave a statement after the show where they said, we announced that Gears of War E-Day and Clockwork Revolution will be Xbox console exclusives. These are not timed exclusives. Games already announced for multi-platform releases will stick to that plan. No, they won't. You already announced this for a multi-platform release. What the fuck are you talking about? It'll stick to that plan. Fuck you. This whole thing is so bizarre. I do think Gears of War is a series that could have ongoing, interest because it's a series that at least there's people who know how to fucking make it. Halo is the one that's in dire straits because no one knows what to do with it. It has more name recognition now, I'll grant you that, but like that doesn't, matter for all that much. And it's just so bizarre. The thing that has been alarming since we last talked about Asha Sharma is she's seemingly taken the Elon Musk strategy of she just spends her days in Twitter replies with trolls, which led to the bizarre spectacle of now Xbox is spelled all caps Xbox because she did a poll. And it's just like, Asha, I hate to break it to you, the people on Twitter tweeting about Xbox are not your target audience. If you are trying to expand the brand and fix the brand, that is not your target audience. In fact, if you are a CEO of a company, you should not have Twitter. You should be as far away from that thing as you can possibly be every single day. You should wake up in the morning thinking about how can I not think about social media today? And instead, she's apparently social media pilled, and that is why we are getting this. Insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things that happened in kind of, this is broadly speaking in the lead up to this showcase, though it happened a couple weeks ago, was there was a whole thing on Twitter where Matt Booty, who's the head of the content side of Xbox, it has been since the Phil Spencer days basically, tweeted about how like they were going to have the logos for all the platforms the games are going to come out on at the showcase, because there's if you're an Xbox dyed-in-the-wool hardcore Xbox fanboy, I'm sorry that that's the position you found yourself in, that you're still there, because you've been in there for a long time if that's where you're at. But there's a whole controversy about like, but they're PlayStation and Nintendo don't put the logos for all the platforms on their showcases, and so why should Xbox do it? I don't have opinion. I don't really give a shit what logos they put in their trailers. But that became another thing that Matt Booty said that's what it was going to be. Then that got blown up in the Xbox hardcore fan base community, and then Asha Sharma tweeted a thing saying, seeing the feedback on logos, it was a miss and I own it. We are talking about how we adjust for our future Xbox shows. And it's like, why is the head of Xbox responding to these fucking lunatics who are upset about the logos for the platforms that these games are coming out on that are Xbox or Microsoft published games like a Fable that's coming out on PlayStation 5, and they'll put a PlayStation logo on the trailer. People are mad about that. And she says that that is a, quote, miss, and I own it, which is one... I feel like she has been reading too many like Windows error messages that are in that very annoying conversational tone that all Windows shit is written in nowadays. Because I just know, don't type like that if you're a CEO of a big company kind of thing. But it's just, you're totally right in making the Elon Musk comparison, that there's this sense of her being in this little circle that is like, it exists entirely in this one little social media bucket of Twitter/X, and that's where she lives now, and that's where the decisions are being made, and that's where like the attention is being spent, and it's like that is just it's the saddest little community of people at this point. Don't cater to them, don't respond to them, don't care about them, because that is one of the things that got Microsoft into this place in the first place, is that Phil Spencer, I don't think he would have tweeted quite that, but he was very much fed that community and was like super active in that community in that way, in a way that like the people at Nintendo and Sony are not. And it's one of the things that has created this really like toxic and kind of disgusting community around Xbox that exists right now. And it's just, this feels like it is making it so much worse. And I'm just baffled. I'm just so baffled by all this.
I just, yeah, it's insane. It's insane, and, you know, if I could give one piece of advice to anybody in business or in politics, it would be just assume that the people online don't speak for anyone in the real world, and you will often be safe. That is the smartest thing you can do. Just stop. Just stop pretending that that's real. It's not. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Gears of War E-Day looked cool. I thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
I thought the gameplay trailer was cool.
We got a trailer for Fable, the new game. It's coming out February 23rd, 2025. It's coming to PS5. All of these are, except that Gears of War one. And we did get this. This was a completely cutscene trailer, no gameplay whatsoever, but it was led by Haley Atwell, who you might know as Peggy Carter, or she was in the last two Mission Impossibles. She's awesome. She was like the main character here. That was cool. I think it's a little weird that this game is like, what, now 6-8 months off, and I don't think we've seen a frame of gameplay from it. So
I mean,
what's it going to be?
They have shown like little tiny snippets of gameplay. Like there kind of wasn't in this trailer, but it was like there's no HUD and stuff like that. It was like still like cinematic camera kind of stuff. But I think it was still technically gameplay. Yeah, this is one where, this February 23rd date is a technical delay, although from what I understand is that it is not a delay because the game needs a delay. It is more a delay because they didn't want to come out next to Grand Theft Auto. And they made the choice of, I think the smart choice is saying, let's also not come out in September. Like, let's just say, fuck that. Like, let's go to February. But this is just a game that's been developed for so long. There have been so many of these story trailers. And to be clear, I'm a big fan of the old Fable games, sans Fable 3, because nobody's a fan of Fable 3. But Fable 1 and 2, those are fucking awesome games. I love them. They just need to put this game out. Like, I just can't watch trailers for it, because I also don't think a trailer would be able to tell you, if you're a fan of the old Fable games, what you want to know about this game, which is like, is this going to meaningfully include all the life sim kind of stuff that Fable had? Like, can my character, get buff or skinny or fat or old, and can you fuck? You could fuck in those old games. It went to a black screen and you heard British people go, ooh, but you could have kids and you can buy property. Like, from my understanding, I believe those systems are in the game, but like, that's the stuff that would interest me, but it's also stuff that is hard to cut a trailer around. So it's like all these trailers just kind of have washed over me, and I just want the game to come out and people to write reviews about it, because that is the kind of thing I need to see to know whether or not I actually would want to play it.
Yeah. But we got Fable. We then got another look at Halo Campaign Evolved. I thought this was a disastrously bad trailer. I think, did Johnson have a new voice? Because it sounded really wrong to me.
I'll be honest, I didn't watch the trailer for Halo Campaign Evolved because I'm just not interested in it.
Okay. It honestly felt like a Borderlands trailer or something. Like, it was very jokey joke in tone. It was a lot of like quick cutting. We saw both new and old levels. We saw some of the new stuff, like Master Chief wielding the energy sword, some other weapons. They brought in the brute gun from Halo 3.
Oh, the brute shot?
The brute shot is in there. Other weapons from throughout the series. There's a space level where you're flying a ship, kind of like out of Halo Reach. But honestly, the tone of the trailer was just bizarre. I also couldn't quite tell what their design of the Chief is in this game, because they showed him both in like Halo 2-3 style, more like detailed armor, but also his like original Combat Evolved armor that is sleeker. I found it a little confusing. It's coming out July 28th. Also on PS5. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the first, maybe I'll check out this trailer just to see what you're talking about with the tone stuff, because I'm just curious to see that. But like the first trailer for this just so put me off the whole idea of it. The Master Chief Collection exists. I just don't need another remake of Halo 1. That's in UE5. I don't know. Yeah. The only thing that's interesting about it is that it's also coming out on PS5. I probably still won't get it, but the idea that I could is interesting.
But also, if they're making gear, this is the other thing about the exclusivity. Should you buy it on PS5 if the assumption now is other Halos won't come out on PS5? I don't know. That's weird. That's got to depress sales, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is a thing where you just don't know when a company like this flip-flops so much on its strategy. It's just you can't have any confidence in anything that they do, which does make it feel like it just kind of puts you off some of those hard like mainline Xbox properties, because it just makes it feel like they are floundering, because they are.
Yes. All right. Resonance: A Plague Tale Legacy is coming out August 27th, also on PS5. I honestly don't know what a Plague Tale is. I've seen it several times, and I still don't know.
This is the third one of these games. There's been a few of them. I haven't played any of them.
Yeah. Then we got Persona news. I'm going to combine both pieces of Persona news here. We have Persona 4 Revival. We got a new trailer for that. That is the remake of Persona 4, a la the remake of Persona 3. We got a good glimpse of gameplay, graphics, some of the new cutscenes, etc. Baton Pass has been added to battles, like it was in Persona 5. The battle UI looks very good. They've very heavily embraced the sort of yellow aesthetic. This one clearly is also taking everything from the Golden, which Persona 3 remake did not necessarily take everything from its other versions. Like, it didn't have any of the portable stuff in it, but this has Marie. It has all of that. It was hard to tell by ear, but it sounded to me like the English dub cast is a mix of old and new. I think Kanji is still Matt Mercer, who took over for Troy Baker, but a lot of the other main characters are clearly recast, a la what they did with Persona 3. In any case, they announced it for February 18th, 2027, for everything except Nintendo Switch, which is kind of interesting, because Persona 3 Reload did get a Switch 2 release eventually, so I assume it'll come out at some point. Maybe it's possible that's being held off for a Nintendo Direct announcement, too. But that is coming. We also got the announcement of Persona 6. This was a very bare-bones announcement. It was just a kind of mood trailer, a slow push-in through a hazy graveyard. The camera tilts up to reveal a headless statue. A shadow reaches towards it. The color scheme is very green. The title treatment shows it as P6, Persona 6. It was announced for Xbox, PC, and PS5. Kind of similar to when Persona 5 was announced years and years ago, also had just a very limited sort of mood trailer. And then also one final thing is Atlas did do a social media post afterwards with a new drawing of Yu Narukami, announcing that the Persona series has surpassed 30 million lifetime sales. Sean, how far have we come since the early days of the Weekly Stuff podcast when you were telling me about this obscure Shin Megami Tensei spin-off thing?
Yes, Shin Megami Tensei Persona 4 on the PS2, which I played emulated using the actual disc on my laptop.
Anyway, any reaction to all of this, Sean?
I mean, one thing on just a quick note on the cast thing. I watched the Japanese trailer for Persona 4 Revival, and I can confirm that it is the returning Japanese cast. One of the many great benefits to watching things with Japanese dubs is they do not recast those motherfuckers, which is great because they're great voices and great performances. I'm interested in it. I think my feelings on it are kind of the same as it was with the initial trailer of, like, I don't think Persona 4 kind of needs I don't think there's as much a need for a remake as Persona 3 had, because Persona 3 has its, and we both have our issues with some elements of Persona 3 Reload, but it had the whole issues with Persona 3 Fest versus Portable, all that kind of stuff. Persona 3 Reload ultimately didn't really resolve some of those issues. But Persona 4 still is a game that I think, you could just kind of play the golden version some of the golden editions are not things I particularly love about the game, but it's still a great version overall, and obviously it's a really great game. And so like it's cool, but I do feel a little bit of that kind of like sense of the lack of necessity for a remake of Persona 4. Maybe as I'm just getting old, and so Persona 4 the Golden, even though it's like 14 years old, doesn't feel that long ago to me.
Yeah, I don't find this necessary really at all. I'd be perfectly happy to just play Persona 4 Golden on my Switch, which I've got, and it's good, and it's there. Honestly, if I wanted to play Persona 4 again, the thing I've wanted to do is go back and play the PS2 version, because I've never played original vanilla Persona 4. And I am looking it up, and we still do not have details on who the voice actors are for the dub, but the dub actors have confirmed, like Yuri Lowenthal and company, that they were not asked to return. So I think these are all new actors. And like, what was confusing me is that the guy playing the protagonist in here sounds a lot like Johnny Young Bosch, but then people were saying online it's a different guy who just sounds a lot like Johnny Young Bosch. So I think I heard Matt Mercer, but it was probably someone who sounds like Matt Mercer. So it is an all new cast, a la what they did with Persona 3.
Yeah, I've just played these games with the Japanese dub, so I didn't even know that the Persona 3 one said recast this, but that makes sense. It's a bummer, like that original English dub cast is obviously really great. But this is it's why I played my grand Resident Evil playthrough thing. It's why when the Japanese dubs became an option, I just started going to Japanese dubs, even when those games are not made for the Japanese dubs first. They are English dub first games, but I'm like, hey, when they make another CG movie, or when Chris Redfield pops up again, I want to hear Tochi. I have been playing through Resident Evil 7, and then I finished replaying Resident Evil 7 and have been playing through Resident Evil 8 I wanted to get back and replay those as now in the chronological order of how the games came out in my great Resident Evil playthrough. In Resident Evil 7, the use of Chris Redfield in that game is fucking transformed by the fact that it is a voice you recognize as Chris Redfield.
Yes.
Like, he is on the radio at an earlier point in the game, which I never realized that it was supposed to be Chris Redfield. And when you hear, I forget his full name, his surname is Tochi, but Tochi-san, it's such a great voice. It's such a great voice for Chris. And you hear him on the radio, I'm like, it's fucking Chris Redfield, oh my god. And when he pops up at the very end of the game, he doesn't look like Chris Redfield, because Resident Evil 7 had a weird redesign of him, but it sounds like him. And it's like, oh, this is the cool, it's something that it delivers a punch in the story of Resident Evil 7 that I think maybe the Japanese developers thought was there, that for the English community, we were all like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, what is happening? He's not Chris Redfield. He's not, they didn't bring Roger Craig Smith back or anything. They didn't, that he had already been recast before that. And it's the same thing with these Persona games, that if like you keep on recasting these characters, it just makes you feel bad for people who like the English dub versions of this stuff, because you can't associate and build up a relationship with the voice of the character when it changes every time something fucking comes out.
Well, we have another version of this, Sean. I didn't mention it earlier, but in Final Fantasy VII Revelation, they recast Sephiroth for the last one in English, because it was Tyler Hoechlin, and they said it was scheduling issues. I don't know if I really believe that. Voice acting is kind of easy to schedule. Infamously, you just have to get in a room in front of a mic.
Especially for a project that's been in development for 4 to 5 years.
Yes. But anyway, they've had to recast Sephiroth for the... it's like, this is why... You're totally right. I mean, in addition to Japanese voice actors just generally being better at their craft, it is also, like... There's a consistency to it, and it's just the English voice acting.
Can you imagine the hell on earth that would occur in Japan if they recast Morikawa as Sephiroth? Unless there was like a controversial reason why it needed to happen. But if they're just like, oh, there are scheduling issues and he couldn't come back, they'd be like, delay the fucking game then. You, like, what? Like, it's just, it would be crazy. You couldn't fathom.
I think the Prime Minister would have to comment on it, I think.
Yes.
Right? Yes. All right. Well, we didn't even mention, so Persona 6.
Sure, yes.
We're getting... Obviously, we knew Persona 6 was in the works. It's been confirmed. There's not a lot to go on in this trailer. My hope, and I've said this before, and I think you've said the same thing, Sean, this will be a new team, because the main Persona team from 345 has moved on. They made Metaphor ReFantazio. They're doing their own thing. I would very much hope that this is a chance to reimagine what Persona is, because I love, love, love the Persona 345 formula, but I also think, particularly after remaking Persona 3 and 4 again, it's time for something new. I hope whoever's behind Persona 6 takes the opportunity to do to Persona 6 what Persona 3 did, and just remake it. Take what you want from the ones that came before, but start a new tradition. That's what I really hope we see here.
Yeah, and I did, obviously it's, a little kind of tone piece, but I liked the what it sort of implies is it has a little bit more of a Persona 1 and 2's kind of vibe with the more kind of horror. It's a little bit more classically Shin Megami Tensei, especially when juxtapose it with Persona 4 Revival, which is very much Persona 4 the Golden coded, which sort of candy coated Persona 4 a bit. The original PS2 version is a bit more grim, and that's one of the things the Golden did. And so when you kind of contrast those, Persona 6 that teaser stands out as feeling like, okay, we're maybe going back to basics in terms of the tone, getting a little bit more of that 90s horror anime vibe that is the more classical Shin Megami Tensei kind of thing that is very much what Persona 1 and the 2s are. And it is also there in the DNA of 3 and OG4. It just like is starting to move away from that direction when you get particularly the original 4. And then obviously the Golden really changes that up. And then 5, is darker in tone than the Golden, but is also not that same kind of dark that this is implying. Yeah, I'm pretty interested. I wonder what they'll do. I mean, it's a long way off, but eventually, presumably, they'll make a Persona 7. What color are they going to use then? They've used all the really big ones. They've got blue, yellow,
pink,
red, green. Yeah, I mean, now you have to go like purple, pink. I mean, those are good colors, high quality colors. Don't get me wrong, but they're not like the big colors. We've got 4 big colors, and this is the last one.
Hot pink Barbie crossover Persona 7.
Yes, let's finally do the Persona game with starring a female protagonist that everyone's been asking for, but make it horrifically offensive by just like making it overly hyper feminine in this very kind of like girl power way. That's what they need to do for 7.
All right, Sean, I'm going to start skipping over some of these because I would like to finish this podcast today. So I'm going to jump ahead to Wolong 2, Wings of Ember from Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja. Did you play Wolong Fallen Dynasty?
No, I played the like beta of it, and it was interesting. This is obviously like Neo styled. It has differences in the combat, but is set in a like crazy version of Romance of the Three Kingdoms. And just never really got around to it, but it's cool to me that they're making another one. It makes me feel like, oh, maybe I should go back and play that first one. I still need to finish Neo 3. I got like a third of the way through Neo 3, and then Resident Evil 9 came out, and then I played every Resident Evil game, basically. And so, these are long games, but I'm just happy that Team Ninja is trucking it along, and they're able to make these cool games that nobody else makes.
Well, that's coming early 2027 to everything, including Switch 2. I want to talk about, there's an indie game they showed off that, like, genuinely felt morally unsettling to me, called Joy in Us. It is a cult leader sim game. Did you see this, Sean?
No, I saw the title, but I didn't see what it was, so I didn't look at the trailer. Cult leader sim game is a hell of a pitch.
It is literally like you are building Jonestown, and you are getting people, and you're, like, putting them to work, and you're putting them in, like, uniforms, and you're building a cult. That was the pitch. It was pitched comedically, but I feel like if there is a line of like subjects video games should be about, that does feel like it has pole vaulted over that line. And I'm okay with video games being about a lot of different things. It's just like, that feels really wrong to me, I have to say. That felt like this should not be a video game. There's something fucked up about this.
Yeah, that's an interesting pitch. It's at the very least, it's a very weird thing to have in an Xbox games showcase. That like sounds like the thing that sure you want to make it and put it out on Steam as an indie game, whatever. But I don't really understand why Xbox would be like, we need the cult leader sim game in our show.
It's like if you want to make a funny, goofy sim game, there's lots of ways to do it without touching on something that is like unambiguously abusive and bad. I don't really like, do you get people to drink the Kool-Aid at the end? Like, what do you include all the sexual abuse? Like, what is this? Yeah,
and it's like it's abusive in this like very personal, invasive kind of way, the cult thing. There is that sim series Tropica that is like that paradizes the sort of like Banana Republic thing of like this sort of like communist despot, and it's a simulation game in that sense, but that is more like political in this like big picture idea, and not this like it's a serial killer simulator or something. Is like that gets a little bit odd. Yeah
Anyway, it's coming to everything including Switch 2 PS5 if you want it. All right, then we got an announcement of the third game in the Hellblade series, but it has pulled a full Rambo, where it has gone from a game called Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, and the new one is just called Senua. This is the third game from Ninja Theory, not Team Ninja, Ninja Theory. They made Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. That was actually a PS4 exclusive when it launched. Then they got bought by Xbox. Then there was Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga. And this one is called just Senua. There was an interview published alongside the announcement. It indicates this is a bigger game than the last two. Those are like sort of 4 to 8 hours, like you could kind of play them in one sitting games. This is intended to be, as they said, a full-blown action-adventure game, so it's just got more mechanics behind it and everything. And they are planning that for next year, 2027, also for PS5.
That's
so
funny.
There you go.
That's like, that's interesting that their whole thing is like, with our multi-platform stuff, it was, what did it say? Games already announced for multi-platform releases will stick to the plan. We're committed to investing in and growing. So it's like, they don't say that they're not going multi-platform for unannounced games or what were at the time because unannounced games. But that feels like that's the implication of what they're saying there. And it is funny that here's a new, this game was not announced at all, but it is going to be coming to PS5. That's interesting. Yeah, I was very confused when I saw this announcement at first because again I didn't watch the show, so I just saw in the list of like news articles it's like Insinua. Like what? Like what the fuck is this? Like okay, no, so it is a Hellblade game. My understanding is that Hellblade 2 did not sell particularly great. So I wonder if this is a little bit of a like we're trying to do a change of course and make it a more video game is what it seems like.
I mean, I'll tell you, Sean, I think my problem, and I named Hellblade my number 3 or 4 game of the year that came. I think it's a brilliant game. The second one launched as, again, the first one had been a PS4 game. The second one was an Xbox exclusive, and then it came to PS5 like a year later. So I think most people missed it because most people who played it, the first one played it on PlayStation, then it was only on Xbox, then it was eventually on PlayStation. I've never bought it, but I would love to play it. I think it's probably a great game. It got great reviews, but you had to own an Xbox, a console that the original game did not originally launch on. It was very weird.
Yeah, so I do think it's interesting. It also, this feels like a very quick turnaround. It's only been, 3 years once it's 2027? Yeah. So, yeah, interesting announcement.
Doom: The Dark Ages. We knew DLC was coming, but we saw the DLC called Revelations. It looks rad as shit. You've got a new spear weapon, a new chain grapple that kind of unlocks more sort of Doom Eternal style movement. I'm into it. There's a brief glimpse of action happening in a stage from Doom 2. I was like, that looks cool. I'm into it. I already have the deluxe edition for this game, so I've paid for this DLC already. It's coming out July 7th. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I thought this was awesome. It was interesting to me that there's a lot of Doom Eternal energy in the crazy spear that does the same thing the super shotgun did in Eternal, where it's a grappling hook and it hooks into enemies and you spin around them and stuff. I was curious what they would do with the DLC in order to change things up, but don't think I ever anticipated the idea of, you will have something that seems like it looks like you're swapping between the shield and the spear. But so it's not like they're getting rid of the shield, but like that is a thing that they would do. It's not, here's another gun. It's here's a different thing that your L2 button and all that shit does, because the shield parry and all the shield powers are so central to the combat in that game. The idea of giving you a different thing that is used on those buttons, that's pretty crazy, and that's a pretty cool way to mix things up.
Yeah. Then we got an announcement that we'd been waiting for, because this had basically leaked that this was being made. And so we were wondering, is it going to be at the State of Play? Is it going to be at the Summer Games Fest? We finally got it here at the Xbox Showcase, and that is the new Crazy Taxi from Sega, Crazy Taxi World Tour. The prophecy day has finally come. I love Crazy Taxi. I'm glad they're making a new one. It's coming 2027 to everything, including Switch 2, and it looks like Crazy Taxi. It looks fun.
Yeah, I'm happy they're bringing it back.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's Crazy Taxi, not like Crazy Uber or some shit. I want to be nostalgic for the days when people fucking took taxis.
I know. All right, scrolling a bit down, because there's a bunch I just am going to skip. Castlevania, Belmont's Curse. This is the new one from some of the people on the Dead Cells team. It looks fucking gorgeous. Obviously, this had already been announced, but this was a really good look at it. It's that hand-drawn art style, incredibly fluid, looks outstanding. We got a focus on the new hero, Rose Belmont. She seems really cool, and we got a date. It is coming October 15th. And I am going to be clearing my calendar for that because, honestly, this was far and away the bbest thing shown at this showcase today. Oh, my God.
Yeah, the initial trailer for this game looked awesome, and we obviously talked about that when it came out. I just think this game is going to be really, really good, and it is very fun to be alive in 2026 and be excited for a new Castlevania game is a good feeling.
Hell yes, it is. We've got, and here's another really cool announcement. There's a new Spyro game, Spyro the Dragon in Spyro: A Realm Beyond. Lovely, like very cartoony graphic style. The last Spyro game was in 2008, The Legend of Spyro: Dawn of the Dragon. We then did have the Spyro Reignited trilogy in 2018, remastering the first 3 games. And this is coming spring 2027 to everything, including PS5 and Nintendo Switch 2, and I know a lot of people were excited about this. I've a little bit of Spyro experience from my youth, like playing it on a friend's PlayStation, but I've always wanted to go back and I actually noticed that the Spyro trilogy is on sale on Switch right now, so I might need to go pick that up because this looks it was a good trailer too. I really loved the art style and everything. It looks good.
Yeah, well, the thing we're saying, like, what's the last Spyro game that came out? I think technically, it would be Skylanders Imaginators, because lest we forget that the Toys to Life sensation that swept the nation, Skylanders started as a Spyro spinoff. And the last Skylanders game was Skylanders Imaginators for the PS3, PS4, Wii U, Xbox 360, and Xbox One in October 2016. And Spyro is mentioned on the Wikipedia page, so I think he's in it. I mentioned this because this school year that just wrapped up, I had 3 students in one of my period that were, they were fun kids, very fucking annoying kids in the classroom because they're, class clowns, and they were really into Skylanders, which is not a thing I expected a teenager to be, because again, the last Skylanders game, as I just said, came out in 2016, which is when these kids would have been like 3 or 4 years old. And it made me think about Skylanders in a way I had not thought about in a very long time. And I wonder if there will be some sick Skylanders references in Spyro: A Realm Beyond. Will it take place in the rich Skylanders continuity? Will Drobot be there? Who knows?
But this is the team at the developer Toys for Bob.
Yeah.
They did a lot of the Skylander stuff. They did the Reignited trilogy for Spyro. We know they've wanted to make this game for a good long time now. They also did Crash Bandicoot 4. And so it looks really cool. I'm glad this is happening. It looks fun. Their last couple credits at Toys for Bob have been as additional work on Call of Duty games. So I'm happy for them getting to make a Spyro game. That must be more fun.
Yeah, I'm glad that the Toy for Bob can be Spyro and not like an MP5,
Yes,
like that's what
indeed.
this studio should be making these games and not, Call of Duty maps.
And then they closed the show with Clockwork Revolution, which is the new game from In Exile Entertainment. Those are the Bard's Tale and Wasteland people. They were acquired by Xbox in 2018. This trailer gave me an aneurysm. It's that irony-poisoned, jokey joke shooter trailer thing that please God, not everything needs to be Borderlands. But whatever, maybe it's good, maybe it's not. This was their other Xbox console exclusive. Whatever. It was a very low end to the show.
Yeah, I did not watch this trailer. I think I saw one of the trailers for this game previously. If this is the game I'm thinking of, it thought it was a bad trailer then. And so, yeah, not interested. It is amusing to me that they're making an Xbox console exclusive alongside Gears of War E-Day. It's an interesting 2 games in your lineup. Be like, we're bringing exclusives back. You can play the prequel Gears of War game and Clockwork Revolution only on your Xbox or your PC, because these aren't exclusives, because also all these games come day to date for PC, and also if you just have a subscription, you also don't have to pay money for it. So I don't know how this is different than the strategies that just led them to feel like they needed to buy Activision and put all their games out everywhere. It's just time. It's just a cycle that is repeating in a shockingly fast fashion.
Look, Sean, gas is $5 a gallon, quickly on its way to $6. Food prices are up, rent is up. The price of an Xbox is $600 minimum to get a Series X, and that's without the disc drive. What better to send people to spend that money when they don't have money because of all that other stuff than Clockwork Revolution and Gears of War E-Day? What else would reverse the trend than those 2 being exclusives?
It's just, I just really need to hear again in my life Marcus Phoenix going, "Dom, shit." That's what I need. And luckily,
You
I
can
can
do that right
because I
now
have an
with Gears.
Xbox. I've got an Xbox Series S. I didn't sell mine. I've still got it. So technically I could buy that game if I wanted.
You could also just get Gears of War Reloaded on PS5 because they already did it. They already put Gears of War on PS5, Sean. They already did it.
Shit.
All right, I'm gonna skip I did write some movie news out, but we've been going too long on the video game stuff. I had one piece of stuff I could have talked about, but I'm gonna just take that off my outline because I'm fine. Moving on. Sean, do you want to tell us about anything before we move on to the monthly 10?
Yeah, I want to hit some video game stuff because I played some video games. And you took care of these notes, and I've just been doing some hardcore video game shit, celebrating my summer break. I have played through 2 games, Saros and 007 First Light. We'll just hit Saros pretty quick because I want to talk a little bit more about 007 because I think it's a fascinating game. Saros is fucking great. This is obviously the sort of spiritual successor to Returnal, developed by Housemarque. It is broadly similar to Returnal. It is a third-person shooter game that is a sort of roguelite. It is set on a mysterious alien world called Carcosa, and you play as a main character named Arjun, and he is trying to basically find his estranged wife who went on this expeditionary mission to this strange planet, but all of the expeditions to this planet have been mysteriously lost. There were 3. His wife was part of the first one. He is part of Echelon 4, the 4th wave, and as soon as they arrive, shit kicks off. There's like some mysterious alien, ancient, godlike being or something that maybe lives in the sun. It's very like vague and kind of cosmic horror stuff, but people start to lose their minds when these like periodic eclipses happen, and Arjun is mysteriously able to return to life every time he is killed in this strange pool of goo that exists in this kind of alien ruin they find on the base that they land on. And so you are like kind of going out and you're doing your action adventure, third-person shooting stuff, and it is an exquisitely well-designed game. It is so much fun, and I do think it is a notable improvement on Returnal. The big change here is that Returnal was a bit more traditional with its roguelike elements in that there was very little in terms of like hard progression that you like leveled up or got more powerful. Saros, the whole pitch is that there is what they call the armor matrix, where you get currency as you fight enemies, and you can use those to unlock upgrades that help you, get better weapons faster on new runs. It gets you different abilities, stuff like that. And that really does help the game a lot, where it is very addictive to keep going on new runs because you always are getting something for your effort. You're always working towards multiple different goals at once, and I think that makes the game a bit more palatable. Returnal could be a bit brutal because Saros, like Returnal, does have long runs. Like this is like one run is going to be 30 minutes to an hour. Like if you're getting a really good run, these are not like quick, snappy ones like more traditional kind of 2D rogue games are going to be like. Returnal, though, if you have a run that long and you die and you got nothing for it, it could kind of break your spirit a bit. And so I think that game had a much more mixed reception because some people, they just bounced off of it hard. Because if you didn't play the game enough to fully master some of the mechanics or understand some of the mechanics, you could just get bounced off that game. Saros does a better job of easing you into the experience, but it is not an easy game. It still has that level of depth to the mechanics. It has, honestly, more depth to the mechanics. And I just think, they're not going to find a better playing third-person shooter today. I'm sure Gears of War E-Day is going to be fun, but Saros, just the game feel of all the weapons, it has that amazing thing that this kind of game needs to have, which is you're convinced that every weapon is like the best weapon in the game, and how could anyone ever not use this weapon until you pick up a new weapon? You're like, oh no, I thought it was the shotgun, and the shotgun was the greatest thing ever. But now I have this crazy laser crossbow, and who would ever use a shotgun? The laser crossbow is everything to me forever. I'm gonna marry this laser crossbow. But no, oh wait, this time I picked up the regular pistol. I had only used it once, but the regular pistol, this is the thing. And when you get the high level weapons, it's just, you get some shit in this game that's just fucked up. Like there's as you play, your character levels up, which gives you better weapons. When you hit certain thresholds after your character's leveled up, those weapons get different modifiers on them. They can have 5 modifiers total, and then each weapon can have a number of different alt fires that are particular to that weapon. Some of them are just like amazing. So the shotgun, for instance, can have an upgrade that makes it so you only have 3 shots rather than 6 on the shotgun, But if you do a perfect reload, like Gears of War, this has an active reload mechanic. If you do a perfect reload, it reloads all 3 shots immediately and then turns your next shot into a hyper burst that'll shoot all 3 of those shells. And then you will reload again. And if you get another perfect reload, then you do another hyper burst. And you just melt enemies because you're just vomiting 3 shotgun shots at them at once. Or some of the shotguns can have a grenade launcher. And so instead of doing 3 shotgun shots, it's 3 grenades that just go immediately and explode and kill everything. You can have a pistol that can have upgrades that make it so the pistol fires as fast as you pull the trigger, and it will reload a shot in your clip if you hit an enemy in the weak point, which means you can just sit there and just spam bullets as fast as humanly possible, infinitely, as long as you're landing all of your shots as like a headshot, and just melt enemies. And there's so many things like that where the more you play it, the more you discover about these really rich, deep, kind of fucked up combat mechanics and different weapon combinations that is so much fun. I ended up playing like 30 hours of this game and just did everything basically you could do in it. And I think it is just an exquisite combat-focused video game. If you like third-person shooters, especially that have like mobility and like a lot of mechanical depth, you really can't get better than Saros. Like it is a like 10 out of 10 game. It is ridiculously good. So Saros, 2 thumbs up. If people are interested in this game, they should play it. And if you were like a little bit intimidated by Returnal or turned off by some of the impressions of Returnal, I do think Saros is a game that just eases you into the experience much better, but has as much, if not more depth as the previous game. And so I think it's just a really, really elegantly designed experience.
Well, nice. And that sounds awesome. I am even more excited, though, to hear what you thought about 007, Sean, because I am interested in that game both as a Hitman fan and as a 007 fan, and now we are in the weird position where you've played both the Indiana Jones and the 007 game, and I have not played either of those. Honestly, the 007 one is just because right now I have to be careful about how many $70 games I'm buying at the moment, and I'm kind of waiting for that to go on sale or find another way to play it.
Well, when it does go on sale or you find time, Jonathan, I think you're going to fucking love this game. 007 First Light is so fucking good. And I'm not like a big James Bond guy, you know, just as a reference. My main James Bond reference points are a couple of the Sean Connery movies like Dr. No and Goldfinger. That's the Sean Connery one, right? There's I get the
Golden Eye is Pierce Brosnan. Yeah,
I get those 2 movies mixed up all the time. So Dr. No and Goldfinger, and then for Daniel Craig, I've seen Casino Royale and Skyfall, and I think that's it. Like I'm sure I've seen sections of like some of the Pierce Brosnan movies and shit like that on TV back in the day, but I never properly watched any of the other versions. So I'm like, you know, I've enjoyed all 4 of those movies are movies I like. Like I enjoy James Bond, but I'm not a hardcore James Bond guy by any means. And I think this is my favorite James Bond thing I've experienced. I think this is just a fantastic take on the character. I think this is it is up there with Arkham Asylum and the Marvel Spider-Man games as like the ultimate expression of a like licensed franchise or property in video game form, that it's like that it stands toe to toe with any other version, in the same way that like if you're someone if you're someone who loves Batman or you don't know anything about Batman, I would still recommend Arkham Asylum to you, because either it will reinforce your love for Batman or it will make you fall in love with Batman. Like I have been eyeing and am waiting for it to go on sale, the like movie collection for James Bond movies, because after playing this game, I'm like, I gotta do some more James Bond shit because it's so good. Just to kind of set up what the game is, in case people don't know, it is developed by IO Interactive, the Hitman people. Is the first game they've made since Hitman 3 / The World of Assassination, one that kind of turned it into a kind of mega game, the 3 modern Hitman games. And it is a origin style story for a modern 007. It's set in modern day England, basically, or around the world. So it's not trying to be a Cold War era game or anything like that, but it is their own original take on the character, played by the actor Patrick Gibson, who people would, if they would know him from something, it's the Dexter prequel they did. He plays Dexter in that, which I haven't seen that.
He's really good in that, which like makes me excited for this. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's an Irish actor, which is good to have another Irish actor playing James Bond. Obviously, he's doing a regular kind of British accent in it and not an Irish accent. But the setup of the game is basically you start with him, James Bond, being a kind of like I think he's a service airman. I don't know exactly what his position is, but he's like just a regular kind of like Air Force guy who's just brand new that's on this kind of random mission. Their plane gets shot down over Iceland because the plane ended up going into this area where there's this PMC group that is doing something with some mysterious intel or whatever. And the plane crashes, everyone dies except for Bond. He miraculously survives. This is also how he gets the scar that, from what I understand, is described in the books that's in this game as well. And he ends up getting orders from Moneypenny, who is, in this version, kind of like the woman in the chair kind of idea, where she's the kind of like intel person on your earpiece, and she gives Bond these orders that you need to go get this thing that's in this camp because it's like of utmost importance. And so he kind of gets jumped into the secret mission. Over the course of that secret mission, though, Bond ends up defying orders because he's basically told to not to rescue the people that were part of this facility that has been attacked. And he basically says, fuck that, gets rid of the earpiece and says, like, I'm going to save these people, and blows up the whole thing. Like, all the thing that he was supposed to get gets fucking blown up along with it, but he saves all the people there. And then months later, M, who is a new M, head of MI6, who's trying to prove herself, brings him in as a new recruit, where they are restarting the 00 program that in this universe has been defunct for 10-something years because the MI6 is really using info from this kind of super AI computer that is trying to predict. It's a little similar to the recent Mission Impossible movies, that there's this AI that's predicting where terrorist attacks will be and stuff like that. So the 00 program went out of fashion, but this new M thinks that there's still room for a human touch in secret intelligence. And so you are this 7th recruit of what was supposed to be only 6 recruits for this new 00 program. And that's kind of the intro to the game. And it's so good at being this mix of sort of Uncharted-esque style narrative action game that is not the kind of thing that IO traditionally has made, but they do such a good job with the cutscenes and the dialogue and the performances. I think Patrick Gibson is just so good at this version of Bond. And I think the setup of the game and the premise of the game is fantastic, where it's like this very earnest take on a Gen Z James Bond, a James Bond that is in his 20s. He's younger than we are, and he is part of this younger generation. And what he's kind of up against is this world that relies on these kind of set tech super companies that are using AI. It's super topical. It's totally about Gen AI. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but I think it's not really a spoiler that you eventually learn that the AI thing that MI6 is using is bad and wrong, and it's a big problem, and it is like hallucinating information that they are doing ops based on and shit like that. It's honestly, I think it's probably more prescient than probably they knew when they started writing the story, because of how much this AI stuff has advanced since I'm sure they started writing it. And so that contrast of having this new younger James Bond who is not yet really the hardened 007 figure, but you see him start on that path. It's just a great story. And I think it captures a thing that in the 2 James Bonds that I know and really like, Sean Connery and Daniel Craig, is a part of the character I think is really interesting, which is that to me, James Bond, when he's full 007, is like, he is a hero in the technical sense of like he's the hero of the story, but he's not a hero in the sense that he's not a particularly moral person. He is a killer. He will kill someone in cold blood. This is like, I think Sean Connery in those old movies, it's part of the thing that makes it a really interesting character, is that he's like, he will fucking gun a motherfucker down who's unarmed if he feels he needs to for his objective. And there's a darkness and a coldness to the character in some of those performances I think is really interesting. And this version of the character, there's a little bit more traditional heroism because he has this youthful optimism to him. And you see how that youthful optimism confronts this really fucked up world that is trying to turn him into the cold, ruthless killing machine that the system needs him to be, and his struggle to try to retain some of that humanity while also needing to become this much more ruthless person in order to achieve the objectives he needs to, that he thinks are good for the world. And the development, the evolution of that character, I think they just have such a great read. Again, I'm not a big James Bond expert, but if, like, the things that I liked about the version of the character I've seen, I think they have such a good take on it. and the way that he starts very youthful, brash, and optimistic. And there are just some scenes in the home stretch of the game where you see that kind of have gotten beaten out of him a bit. And there's just like a darkness there, this like willingness, where there's a scene in the kind of antepenultimate level that sets it up where he's with the Bond girl of the game. And he does that thing that to me is like a very Sean Connery thing where he looks at this woman and you're like, either he's going to sleep with her or he's going to kill her. And those are the two ways that he looks at this person. And there's like a very fine line between that, and he ultimately sleeps with her. But like, there's something about the way they animate that, and Patrick Gibson plays that scene where I'm like, I got kind of chills. Because like, this is, in my mind, this is the character that James Bond should be. And a lot of the movies I've watched, I feel like that element is there, but I've always, none of those four movies fully captured what to me is like in my gut, I kind of feel like the James Bond thing was going for. And there's just moments where this game like hits it for me in a way that almost made me want to more like be like, I wonder if I should read the books, because I wonder if the books have the thing that is the thing that I'm feeling here with the character. I don't know, because I know based on interviews they pulled lots of things and were inspired by the books
are darker. I think a lot of that is very much. I mean, because Ian Fleming was also in the service himself.
Right.
It's. I think you get a lot in the books of that kind of. What would you say, that kind of mixed feeling about this job where, like, I mean, one of the key things about James Bond that you're also identifying is that he's an assassin. That is the job. 007s, 00s are assassins. That is their job. And, like, what does it mean to be an assassin in this role? There's some good introspect. Like, if you want to read one, I would read On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think gets into that in an interesting way. That's also the one where he gets married and his wife dies and all of that stuff. But that's a very good book.
Yeah, because it's just, playing the game, it just, from the story perspective, I think they just 100% nailed it, no questions asked. And it's interesting because it also is, since it's a game, it's obviously much longer than like a James Bond movie. And so it also is paced a little bit more like if they made an 8-episode like James Bond miniseries, it kind of feels like that's the sort of story it's going for. And it's pretty interesting. It's got a bit more of an episodic structure to the narrative, which I think works really well. And so that's all the story stuff. But that also is obviously supported by the gameplay, I think is fantastic. It is basically exactly the game that I wanted it to be. When you heard IO, the people who made the modern Hitman games, that those same people are going to make a James Bond game, and you picture in your mind's eye, what should that video game be? They just 100% did it. They just nailed it completely. It's got all the Hitman stuff it needs without being a Hitman game. It's got more action. It's got, like, it adjusts the stealth stuff to not just be like, there are some things where you can get disguises, but it's not about knocking out the chef and you wear the chef hat and then you go to where you need to go. It's more about like, you use your gadgets to get around scenarios. There's a whole social mechanic where you can bluff, and like there's a kind of a meter you have that based on things you can do, you can recharge, that you can use to kind of bluff your way out of situations. So you can kind of, it almost made me think of like if you were doing a Doctor Who video game, this was how you do this. It's like convince someone that you're supposed to be here and that you're the I'm this inspector for this place. Like I need to go. And then the way there's so much, I can't imagine how many lines of dialogue they recorded for all the scenarios in which you can use this mechanic. But there's more traditional stealth stuff about like sneaking around, getting in cover, going up and choking motherfuckers out. But then there's also full-on big combat mechanics, much more so than Hitman. And I think they're really, really fun. And it's something where if anybody ever makes another Uncharted game, I think looking at the way they do it here would be awesome, because it is a really great blend of gunplay and brawling, like fisticuffs. And it's cool because they do have a mechanic in the game where you can't draw a gun on someone unless there's like a quote unquote the license to kill thing pops up on screen at the top. But it's basically if someone draws a gun on you, or if you're specifically given orders to kill people, those are the only situations in which you can use a gun. So you can't just like walk into a room and just pull your pistol out and shoot someone in the head like you could in Hitman. Not an effective thing to do in Hitman, but if you wanted to, like I did, kill everybody in the Colorado level just to see what happens, that game is way more open. Here, they're trying to preserve the nature of the character. You're meant to be role-playing as James Bond, and I think they mechanically build yourself out to do that. But when shit kicks off, it's so much fun, and it's, the brawling mechanics are relatively simple in terms of what you do, but they're very expressive in terms of what the results are. So the game has great physics, where you're like just like shoving dudes over fucking railings and stuff like that and seeing them ragdoll. You can punch enemies, you can counter, but you can also grab and throw guys, or and run people into walls. As you can like fight someone in like a bathroom, grab them and like ram them into a like tile wall, and the tiles will shatter and fall off. Or if you're like by a a urinal or something, it'll have a contextual action where they kind of throw their head into the urinal. Almost reminds me a little bit of like Sleeping Dogs in that way, where there's a lot of contextual physics stuff in the environment and how that engages with your combat mechanics. And then with the guns, the gunplay is very satisfying. It's definitely kind of upgraded over Hitman, but also it is meant to be you are moving between guns and melee. It's not just your stop and pop Gears of War. All the guns have very limited amounts of ammo, but when you run out of ammo, you do the thing that is like the most genius mechanic in this game. You just fucking chuck that gun at a motherfucker's head. It's like, oh, this fucking rifle's out of bullets? Well, here you go. Like Hitman style, like when Hitman you throw like a fucking fire extinguisher at someone, two-hand overthrow, just pelt this thing at a dude's head, run up, take them down, take their gun, move on with like that. There are all these mechanics so you can like shoot guns out of people's hands. You can shoot them in the leg and do a takedown. You can, from cover, leap over cover and tackle a guy to take his gun. There are these, what they call the tactical simulation missions, that are these kind of more repeatable challenge type things. And I really recommend people, if you play the game, to do some of those early on and not just do the story all the way through, because they show you some of the more advanced combat mechanics. But it definitely is in this sweet spot of game design that I personally really love, where they give you all these tools, and it's about how do you, as the player, choreograph a really sick action scene for James Bond to do. And it is kind of the mindset I have playing like a Yakuza game or something. I'm thinking more about how can I chain these moves together in a way that looks cool, and less about how do I technically just beat the enemy. I don't want to just beat the enemy. I want to create a really awesome action scene. On top of that, you obviously have like the gadgets is a big thing. Like their version of Q in this game is great. I fucking love this Q. It's a more classic version, like older guy. He's got a fucking ascot. It's great. He's awesome. Q Lab is amazing. You can walk around Q Lab and see all their crazy gadgets they make. You've got a laser watch. You've got the rocket pin. You've got like a cell phone that shoots the poison darts at people. Like all kinds of crazy gadgets you can use that supplement all those combat mechanics and stealth. And it's very, sandbox in that way of everything can be used in so many different combinations in the different modes of play you're in. Whether you're trying to do stealth stuff, whether you're in active combat, all of the gadgets can be used in both scenarios in different ways, and it's really satisfying in that way as well. And so I think just, for me, this game gets top marks. It's so much fun. I think the story is phenomenal. I think their take on James Bond is just fucking awesome. Again, so good that it's making me want to do other James Bond stuff, read books, watch movies, because it's just such a cool take on the character. And then the gameplay is exactly what you kind of dreamed of it being. And they've announced it's already sold 3 million copies, which is fucking awesome. So this game is a big hit. Obviously reviewed incredibly well, but they're doing Hitman style like updated content. They're going to add more tactical simulations. They've already said that they are going to add another whole mission into the game involving a side character that seemed really prominent for the relatively small amount of screen time he had. And so when they announced and there'll be a mission involving this guy, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because there's a cool character that they never really did all that much with. So yeah, I think this, to me, if you are someone, if you love James Bond, I just have to imagine that you will be head over heels in love with this game. But even if you're someone who has an interest in James Bond like me, but is not super deep into it, but you like these kinds of games, you like your kind of like cinematic action games, this is that, but it has way more expressive gameplay than these kinds of games typically do. And that's the IO DNA. I think they were able to effectively replicate some of the cinematic stuff that a studio like Naughty Dog does, but absolutely one up the kind of gameplay they typically do. I mean, Last of Us is a little bit more involved than Uncharted, but this just has so much going on in the gameplay department that I'm very excited for them to add more challenge missions and stuff, because this game is just fun to play in almost a pseudo Hitman I just want to go in there and do all the optional challenges. Like Hitman, there's a dozen different ways you could have accomplished this goal, and there are challenges that you can unlock for how you do it, and those get you different bonuses and stuff. And I haven't, because I've had other stuff I wanted to move on to play. So I have not gone through and done a second playthrough of the campaign, but I do want to go through and just load up those missions and look at the challenges. And it says like, get into this area by using X costume. And I'm like, I didn't know that costume even existed. I never found it or disguise. So I know that there's so much depth to the scenarios more than I did on a single playthrough. And so I think this game is one I'll come back to multiple times through this year as they add more content, go back into the campaign, try to get all the challenges. It is just, I could not be happier with this game. Like, it just did exactly all the stuff I wanted to do, which is like, it's kind of like my dream version of this game, but it's in real life, and it's awesome.
Well, that's awesome. I cannot wait to play this. Now I'm thinking about maybe I just need to bite the bullet and spend the $70, and it's probably worth it because it sounds awesome, and sounds like it's also got some replayability to it, too, which is cool to hear. Absolutely. If I can recommend any things for you, Sean, from James, I was thinking about this while you were talking, and based on what you said, you should absolutely read the original Casino Royale. That book just kicks fucking ass. It's so good. You should read On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and if there's one movie I know you haven't seen that you should see, watch The Living Daylights, which is the first Timothy Dalton movie. It's a very proto-Daniel Craig version of Bond, but it's very dark. And then if you want the, like, Funhouse mirror version of that, the second Timothy Dalton, License to Kill, which is basically if James Bond did Miami Vice, but even more fucked up. It's wild. It's not necessarily as good, but it's really wild. I think you would dig those.
Yes, those have been kind of on my list because you've recommended them to me before.
Timothy Dalton is the great what if of James Bond. If he had had 4 or 5 movies, I think we'd talk about him like Daniel Craig. I think he'd be one of the greats.
Yeah. And this game just sort of like ignited my interest in James Bond in a way I honestly was not expecting. Because again, it's like I like the movies I've seen, but I don't like love them. But I played this game like James Bond is a fucking it's that way of like it gets to the like. It feels like a depth to the character that I always kind of detected was there, but never really, either I just didn't really fully see it and engage with it in the movies, or the movies just didn't fully get into it. But it just made me think about James Bond in a way I never thought about on like kind of a deeper level. It made me appreciate, I think, why the character persists in the way he does. I mean, obviously he's very modular and you can do lots of different tones and styles with him, but I think like this game shows me it's sort of like essence of the character I think I'd overlooked up to this point.
Well, awesome. That's great to hear. Anything else before we move on to the monthly 10?
I think we're good. I am very excited, Jonathan, to hear what you've come up with for the monthly 10 here.
Your assignment, Sean, was the top 10 Star Wars movies that Disney should start making and get us excited about before canceling. And I took a couple little liberties around the edges with that premise because I wanted to make it fun, but I basically stuck to that. And I have to say, Sean, this was genuinely difficult because I kept coming up with joke ideas that were actually already happened. Like, the shitty director of the Marvel Spider-Man movies does a Star Wars. Nope, that's Star Wars Skeleton Crew. That's what that is. That is the guy from the Marvel Spidey movies doing that. Or I went, what if the Game of Thrones bros did a Star... Nope, they announced that. They announced a Benioff and Weiss trilogy, and so I had to keep, like, backing off of those. But I think I came up with some good ones here. So, you want to hear them?
I very much do.
All right, number 10. Lucasfilm announces an intra-Disney partnership with Pixar to produce Star Wars Lightyear, a crossover with the Toy Story spin-off movie where Buzz Lightyear of Star Command chases the evil Emperor Zurg to the Star Wars galaxy, where Zurg starts a turf war with Palpatine for control of the galaxy during the period between episodes 3 and 4. Lightyear must team up with yet another new Jedi we've never heard about before who survived Order 66 to learn about the ways of the Force and stop Zurg once and for all. After being announced at D23, the project is never mentioned by anyone within Disney ever again.
I like the Ouroboros nature of this one, of Buzz Lightyear, a character that is already a Star Wars parody, amongst other things. Like getting Star Wars. In your mind, is this like it is a collaboration with the movie they made that is like, this is the show that the toy was based on, or wherever the fuck that movie was? Is it that version of Buzz Lightyear?
I don't think they got that far in planning, and the problem with that is that they fired the guy who directed that movie, which is unfair. That movie is not his fault, but Angus MacLane, who had been at Pixar since like the beginning, was one of the layoffs after that movie because it bombed, which feels pretty vindictive of a guy who I don't think chose to make that movie.
Yeah.
And that movie actually is better than you think it would be. I saw it, I'm like, it's not great, but it's like It's better than it had any right to
I
be.
mean, talk about a movie that's impossible to market because you can't explain to people what the movie is.
Yes. It's so weird. Yeah, I think it's probably, in my head, it's Chris Evans' Lightyear, I think.
Okay.
Because it would be what's the stupidest version they could do? It would be that version, right? Yeah. All right, number 9. Martin Scorsese is announced to be directing and starring in a new Star Wars series for Disney Plus about his character from The Mandalorian and Grogu, Hugo Durant. A few weeks later, Scorsese is asked about this in an interview for his latest film, and is completely unaware of the project or its announcement. Disney is forced to admit they never actually asked him about it before making the announcement. Eventually, however, a series is made, produced by Dave Filoni with Scorsese starring, and for some reason, it's about Hugo Durant getting involved in a resistance against Grand Admiral Thrawn. Crucial character resolution from Ahsoka Season 2 is haphazardly included as well, confusing absolutely everybody.
I like that. I mean, I have not seen Mandalorian and Grogu, so I don't. I heard that this character exists, but I've not seen him. But when you say
one of the highlights of that movie, honestly,
when you say Martin Scorsese in Star Wars and he's like playing a character, all I can think of is him being in Dexter Jettster's Cantina thing from episode 2. Like, I just need those two together. As far as we know, Dexter Jettster is still alive, so he could still be there in the post episode 6. We don't know how long his species lives for.
Yeah. So anyway, and again, that one is only half a joke, because the thing about doing a random spin-off show that becomes Crucial Character Resolution, they did. That's the Book of Boba Fett.
Yes.
Mandalorian Season 4, had it been made, was going to be about Thrawn, which is just like, guys, get up, let's go outside, touch grass, get some fucking perspective on this, guys. Anyway. All right, number 8. Now that Dave Filoni is in charge, he can finally go full Star Wars fanboy, admit the sequel trilogy was a giant creative mistake, and erase it from existence by greenlighting a full film trilogy of the Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire novels, billing them as the true Episodes 7, 8, and 9. He is luckily talked into casting real actors as Luke, Han, and Leia instead of doing AI deepfakes, with Sebastian Stan, Alden Ehrenreich, and Billy Lord stepping into the roles, Alden Ehrenreich obviously reprising his role as Han from Solo. All is going smoothly until Disney CEO Josh D'Amaro visits the set of the film on the first week, sees the furry salamander thing wrapped around Grand Admiral Thrawn's neck, is told it's called an Isalamari and is used to disrupt the Force, and promptly has a crisis of faith and shuts the film down, firing everyone involved. Control of Lucasfilm is transferred to Kevin Feige, who promptly hires the Russo brothers to produce a Star Wars vs. Avengers movie in which Tony Stark falls through a wormhole into the Star Wars galaxy. Robert Downey Jr. is paid $500 million for his performance.
Well, at least in that version, we would find out what happens when a lightsaber hits a vibranium shield. And we'd be very excited by the results of that encounter.
I just like the idea, because I thought about what would get this shut down, and it probably is, if you don't know, I don't even know how to say it, the Isalamiri, whatever it is, the salamander that Thrawn wears to disrupt the Force. I just imagine the Disney CEO coming to set, seeing that and going, we've strayed from the path, this is wrong. Even though I would dig it, yes. I would watch that.
Yeah, it is, honestly, that might be the one that most fits so far the prompt I gave you, because that is very much the thing that would get a lot of Star Wars nerds very excited, and then they just be in tears at it getting canceled.
I also think my casting was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Billy Lord is an easy one because that's just Carrie Fisher's daughter, but I mean, there you go. That works for a reason. She's also an actress, so she knows what she's doing. Anyway, all right. Number 7. Having exhausted their entire animated film catalog for live-action remakes and becoming desperate for another fix, Disney announces a live-action, shot-for-shot remake of the 2008 Clone Wars movie to be directed by Jon Favreau, who at this point has fully dissociated his soul from his body. Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen quote-unquote reprise their roles in live action, but really it's through iffy de-aging CGI that looks worse than the CG in the 2008 movie. I'm trying to think of reasons this wouldn't get made, but no, I actually think this is the rare one that gets over the finish line. It makes very little money and crushes the souls of all who watch it.
I mean, it would definitely, the idea of a shot-for-shot remake of that, even just, taking, the plot line of it. I mean, it's a thing made that was 3 episodes to be the pilot of a TV show that then somehow got, tortured into a technically a movie. Then making the additional step of turning it into a live-action movie truly would be a heinous experiment. A truly heinous experiment.
But honestly, Sean, the more I was writing that, I was like, what's the joke of why this gets canceled? And the more I wrote, I went, this sounds like something Disney would fucking do. Oh my God. Like,
I mean, although you missed a trick of actually the scariest thing would be the like full CGI necromancy they would do to fucking Christopher Lee, because Count Dooku is in that movie.
yeah,
There's a whole big duel. There's a duel between him and Anakin Skywalker. That's actually a pretty cool scene near the end in the dunes of Tatooine. And that would be the most soul-crushing part of the whole thing. It's watching a CGI de-aged Hayden Christensen dueling a horrible CGI zombie version of Christopher Lee, one of the greatest actors of all time. I would melt into a puddle and never watch a Star Wars thing ever again.
but also they wouldn't get the lightsaber choreography right. It would be like the big heavy swings from like episode 9. It'd be terrible.
Well, it'd be the thing that happens with a lot of the modern live-action Star Wars stuff where they are... they're way too delicate with the props because they have actual LED lights and stuff in them. They're not just like cheap little metal rods like they used to be, and they just fucking hit the shit out of each other with them. So now all the lightsaber stuff, the actors are just way too gentle with them, and it's not worth it just to have the lighting. They should just make them big sticks that they hit each other with again. That's my hot Star Wars take. Bring the sticks back.
That's also Ewan McGregor has said that in interviews, so it's not just your take. All right. Number 6, absolutely desperate after a string of theatrical flops, Lucasfilm greenlights a Star Wars movie based on Patton Oswalt's 9-minute improvised monologue from a 2013 episode of Parks and Recreation. Because this monologue involved a crossover with the Avengers and Thanos, the X-Men, all of the Greek gods, and many other ridiculous tie-ins, it quickly rises in cost to become the most expensive movie ever made, at a production budget of over $2 billion, without ever being finished. The losses are so immense that not only is Lucasfilm shut down and the Star Wars brand abandoned forever, but Disney decides to sue Patton Oswalt personally, and the poor man is rendered destitute by the mouse.
I like all of that, but up until Patton Oswalt somehow wins the case, and then Disney just goes bankrupt, and he becomes the richest man on Earth.
That sounds good.
And then everything's solved, because I think he would be the rare person that would maybe do something good with that money.
Yeah, I don't think money would. I think Patton Oswalt is like old enough and good enough a person that he would not be corrupted by the money.
Yes, he would stay on the light side of the Force, and he'd use it for charity.
Well, here we're going to talk about a much less pleasant human being, Sean. After Donald Trump threatens Disney's bottom line in one thuggish way or another, pick your poison, they agree to placate him by announcing Brett Ratner's Star Wars, written by sex pest Max Landis, which will star exclusively canceled actors. Led by Gina Carano, reprising her role as Cara Dune, who searches for corrupt ex-Imperials to help ensure election safety in the New Republic and thus reinstall corrupt Imperial oligarchs with the goal of electing a character played by Kevin Spacey. This film will also be announced to star Mel Gibson, Jonathan Majors, Armie Hammer, Louis C.K., James Franco, and other assorted sex pests. I was going to add a joke here about including a cameo by Roman Polanski before remembering that Brett Ratner actually did that in Rush Hour 3. There is a Roman Polanski cameo in Rush Hour 3. That's not a joke.
I did not know that.
Yep. Anyway, the film and cast are announced, Trump backs off, and then nothing happens until a new president is elected in November 2028, and the project is quietly canceled on January 21st, 2029.
Yeah, this is a particularly horrifying one, and I did not realize when I made my Call of Duty Advanced Warfare joke earlier that I was setting you up for a Kevin Spacey joke later.
Oh boy. All right, number 4. Joseph Kosinski and Tom Cruise sign on to revive the Star Wars Rogue Squadron project, pitched as Top Gun in Star Wars. Joseph Kosinski obviously directed Top Gun Maverick and the recent F1 movie. He's great. It is the absolute easiest slam dunk in the history of Star Wars projects. Absolutely everyone is excited for it. The script is written by Christopher McQuarrie. It's a home run, and it is canceled just before production by the intervention of Bob Iger, who, although retired, is so confused by the concept of aviator sunglasses in the world of Star Wars that he throws his weight around to make current Disney leadership cancel the project. Everyone is disappointed, and we instead get a low-effort Book of Boba Fett movie that looks conspicuously cheaper and lower quality than the TV series it's based on.
Now I'm like desperately trying to think if anyone has ever worn sunglasses in Star Wars, and I don't think, don't quote me on that, but it's not, nothing's popping to mind. I mean, I'm sure that they've had like, visors and like helmets and shit like that, but I don't think straight sunglasses. I don't think it's happened. The thing I like to imagine if they had went forward with this movie is the absolutely torturous, press cycle where they try to absolutely convince you that they did not use CGI at all in the making of this movie. It's all practical. I swear to God, it's all practical. They're all real X-Wings, baby. That's all. There's no digital here.
It would probably be really good is the thing.
Yeah.
And I wrote this and then I was sad that it doesn't exist. But obviously this is my play on the Ben Solo project that was shit canned by Bob Iger, even though it sounded like a slam dunk because he couldn't get over the fact that, well, we killed Ben Solo, so this makes no sense.
Yes.
Anyway, he's an idiot.
We also killed the Emperor Palpatine, and we revealed he was alive in a Fortnite event before the movie came out. So I think, really, Ben Solo somehow survived would not have been the most biggest reaches in the history of the Star Wars franchise.
Number 3. In the year 2033, after Disney acquires the newly merged Paramount Warner Brothers, and they now own everything, they announce the development of Star Wars vs. Star Trek, in which Captain Kirk and the crew of the original series, who are at this point on their 5th round of recasts, fall through a wormhole into the Star Wars galaxy, where they help Luke, Han, and Leia, all created via AI deepfakes a la Luke's appearance in Book of Boba Fett, in the period right after Return of the Jedi. It is to be written by current Star Trek stewards/destroyers Akiva Goldsman and directed by Alex Kurtzman. God himself, finally considering this a bridge too far from a humanity that has fallen far below his lowest expectations, steps in and summons a second biblical flood, wiping out all life on Earth before the film can enter production. No Noah this time, no Ark, we have gone too far.
I think the only possible saving grace is if Bones stayed as Carl Urban. That'd be like the one thing that you'd be like, I want to see Carl Urban say, damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a Jedi.
I think everyone in the original cast is already on their 3rd actors in the various Paramount Plus shows.
I know they
terrible.
Keep on somehow putting those characters in the different TV shows and all that. Star Trek is in such a dire place as a brand. It's I can't even keep track of the depths it has fallen to at this point.
Yeah, and just to all the internet warriors out there, it's not because it got woke. Star Trek was always woke. It's because it's written by Akiva Goldsman, fucking Batman and Robin guy, and directed by Alex Kurtzman, who sucks. Also written by him. I fucking hate those guys. They're terrible at what they do, and those shows suck. And I desperately need Star Trek to be in better hands, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon.
Yeah, it is just like Star Trek. It just feels like I looked away one day and then I looked back and I'm like, what the fuck happened to Star Trek? How did they made 5 TV shows and they all seem terrible?
Yeah. All right, number 2. Since we've already had projects on Rey and Ben Solo get shit-canned or lost in development hell, it's time for Finn and Poe to shine. After the Trump administration collapses the American economy into a second Great Recession and a new Democratic president is elected in 2028, Disney decides it's time for Woke 2 and finally gives the people what they want, a Finn and Poe spin-off where they finally kiss. Development proceeds apace, but the new Democratic administration, doing absolutely nothing to rein in the corruption and criminality of the Trump years and instead focusing on a reconciliation package of refundable tax credits for red state farmers, becomes immediately unpopular, and a wave of even more extreme Nazi Republicans wins the House and Senate in 2030. Afterwards, Disney decides Woke 2 is dead, and shifts development, hiring Michael Bay to direct the project as a sort of Bad Boys riff, with Finn and Poe aggressively displaying their heteromasculinity and making crude homophobic jokes for the entire runtime. It grosses $1 billion when it finally releases in 2032, as Americans head to the polls to elect President Candace Owens in a landslide victory.
I think that might be the most grim thing you have ever said in your whole life, Jonathan. Jesus.
You also have to admit that is a within the bell curve outcome.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing that makes it grim is that it's most of what you said there is plausible.
That came so easily, Sean. I just went. I don't even remember. That was in a fever dream. I went, what's going to happen in the next 5 years? Boo, 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 boo. So there we go. Yeah, that's grim.
And that wasn't even your number 1.
My number 1, Muppet Star Wars. In the most amazing possible crossover, Disney finally decides to give the Muppets some proper time in the cinematic spotlight. At the same time, they finally decide to make a good Star Wars movie. For the 50th anniversary of the original film in 2027, they announced The Muppet Star Wars, a remake of the original 1977 classic starring an all-Muppet cast, but with 2 human players. And we're going to do this Muppet Treasure Island style. So we have a young actor, like a kid, playing Luke Skywalker. But my idea is that for old Obi-Wan Kenobi, you put Mark Hamill in. And you have Mark Hamill play old Obi-Wan just as a fun thing. I think that, because also, I think Mark Hamill would do really well among Muppets. I actually say I know because he was on the Muppet Show back in the day for Star Wars. So that'd be fun. Then in terms of all your other characters, C-3PO and R2-D2, that's obviously Gonzo and Rizzo. That's an easy one. Han Solo and Princess Leia are Kermit and Miss Piggy. For Chewbacca, there's a lot of ways you could go here. Chewbacca is kind of already a Muppet, but I'm picking Sweetums, who is the big Muppet guy who, if you've seen the Muppet movie, he's the guy who runs after, like, come on, guys, let me go with you. He's great. Grand Moff Tarkin is obviously going to be Sam the Eagle. That's just an easy one. The hardest one of these for me was Darth Vader. Who the hell do you make as a Muppet Darth Vader? And the funniest answer I could come up with, this is a deep cut, you have to know the Muppets to know why this is funny, but it's Bobo the Bear. If you don't know Bobo the Bear, Google Bobo the Bear. He's a bear who's kind of depressed, but he's also big. But he looks like a real bear. He's not like Fozzie Bear. He's like a real bear. And I think the idea of putting a helmet on Bobo the Bear and having him be Darth Vader is really funny. So that's what I'm going with.
I'm looking at pictures of Bobo the Bear right now. That's a good Muppet.
Yeah.
That is a good ass prop. Goddamn.
Yes. Then I also cast the Red Squadron team. So as your Red leader, that's going to be Rolf the dog, obviously. As Biggs, who is also Luke's, friend. And I think we're going to have to do that scene from the deleted scenes. It's going to be Fozzie Bear, right? Because Kermit and Fozzie, it's Fozzie. Red leader is Rolf, like I said. Wedge, Red 2, is going to be Scooter. And then for Porkins, who is the Red guy who dies, I think you've got to have Lew Zealand. This is another one you should look up. It's L-E-W, and then Zealand is in New Zealand. And he is a Muppet who's got a mustache, and he plays with fish. And he's got, like, a weird outfit. I think Lew Zealand is Porkins, and he dies horribly, and that's going to be funny. Greedo is going to be Pepe the King Prawn. And for the outlaw and his animal buddy in the Mos Eisley Cantina who confront Luke and then Obi-Wan cuts the dude's arm off, that's going to be Dr. Teeth and Animal. And I think that's where we go, and that's perfect. So this project finishes principal photography. It's in post-production when a corporate shakeup sees David Zaslav installed as the new head of Disney. He immediately cancels and shelves the film for a tax write-off. And the public backlash is so harsh and widespread that he becomes the first to go under the guillotine in a French Revolution-style American uprising.
I was wondering when the David Zaslav tax break joke would be in there. I'm glad you saved it for number 1. And honestly, as you're saying that, it kind of boggles my mind that Muppet Star Wars isn't a thing. I know. It feels like it should have happened in the 80s, Yeah, and
or they've made a bajillion Disney Plus things.
Yeah.
How have they not done a special, 30 minutes fun Muppet Star Wars something, right?
Yeah, it's a tragedy.
I know. And there actually have been, I did learn while I was doing this, there have been some Muppet Star Wars parodies on various Muppet shows over the years where they've had, you can actually look up who was cast as who in those parodies, but these are 5-minute skits on The Muppet Show or Muppets Tonight or something like that. So that's my top 10, Sean. I tried to balance the very grim with the funny. I hope I did a good job. How depressed are you?
I thought that those were some really good ones. I was incredibly sad after the number 2 one you explained, and then the number 1 you said Muppets, and I got happy again. So, I think it worked out. It was a very good list. I like these speculative lists of what does the future entail is a fun thing to make.
Yeah. Well, those are my 10. Sean, I have a challenge for you.
Yes.
So next month, July, The Odyssey is coming out by Chris Nolan, and we're actually going to do an Odyssey episode. So that's going to be fun, where we'll be thinking about this stuff anyway. But old books. You've read epic poems, ancient novels. What I want you to do is pick 10. I was thinking epic poems or otherwise ancient books, they got to be old, right? You can pick how old, but, akin to something like the Odyssey or Sir Gawain in the Green Knight, or I don't know, any of those things, right? Mm-hmm. I know those are different time periods, but
yes,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, the Middle Ages versus the ancient world, but yes.
Yeah, maybe the Middle Ages is our cutoff, I don't know. But, old-ass books / poems, and I want you to pick 10 and pair them with modern directors who should adapt them. But what I really want is the casting, because I'm excited for this Odyssey movie. I think it looks good. I'm curious to see what Chris Nolan does with it. The only thing that's kind of holding me back is my brain is a little broken by having Matt Damon as Odysseus. Because Matt Damon is such an aggressively modern actor. He's not the kind of, they've got Anne Hathaway as Penelope. That makes sense. Anne Hathaway is someone you can believe as, someone from 2,000 years ago. Matt Damon, maybe he'll be great. He's a good actor. I'm reserving my judgment, but I really also do want to hear who is your casting on this that is a little uncanny, and you go, huh? I want that too in this top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much with you with the Odyssey of it is, because it's both Matt Damon as Odysseus and then Tom Holland as Telemachus is a weird 1-2 punch, at least based on looking at the trailers. And then because then you see Robert Pattinson as Antinous, I think his name is, the leader of the suitors. You're like, yeah, that works. And then the next shot in the trailer is Tom Holland. Like, no, yes. I just see Spider-Man. I'm sorry. So what I've written down here, John, this is a fair interpretation, is top 10, I'm going to call them pre-modern works of literature, which would basically be Middle Ages and earlier.
Yeah.
For adaptation paired with both a director and a cast.
Yeah, I'm good with that. And it can just be the star if you want. If you want to go deeper, you can. But make of it what you will. Have fun with it.
Okay, cool. We can talk about Paradise Lost. We can do Edmund Spencer's The Fairy Queen. I got to get Gilgamesh in here. There's some good stuff. I'm very excited for this. This is a good list.
Because Sean, this Odyssey movie is going to make unholy amounts of money. It's going to be huge. And so they're going to want to do more. Instead of Hollywood is going to do the thing where instead of being we should nurture more directors like Chris Nolan, they're going to do we need to make more epic poems into movies thing. So you just know that there's going to be a run on this.
Yes, that's good additional context because I didn't think about that, but I've added a note for myself think about it as a ridiculous cash grab movie.
Yes.
A la, you make, Pirates of the Caribbean is successful and all of a sudden it's we need to have sword fighting movies. Everyone put a sword in it, Or, obviously Iron Man is what's a superhero that we own? Please, we got to put a superhero in there.
Yeah, so that is the monthly 10 for next month. But before we get to July, we will have a June topic episode for you guys. And Sean came up with this. It is his passion project. So why don't you tell the kids what we're doing for our June topic maybe in 2 or 3 weeks?
Yes, so I'm very excited for this, Jonathan. I've come up with an idea for a podcast that I've been thinking about for a long time. But it's one I knew I didn't want to pull the trigger on until I had finished watching the show Ultraman Max, for a specific reason I'll talk about in a second. But we are finally going to do an Ultraman-focused podcast because the timing of me finishing Ultraman Max happens to have perfectly lined up with the 60th anniversary of Ultraman, which is this year. Super Riot Productions is doing a bunch of big stuff for Ultraman this year. Technically, the 60th anniversary will be in July, which is when the first episode of Ultraman aired, but the Odyssey is also coming out in July, so we're pushing this a little bit earlier. It's the 60th anniversary year. It doesn't really matter when we put it out. But specifically what we are doing is we are going to be covering all of the episodes of Ultraman across a couple of different shows that are directed by the director Jisoji Akio, who I've mentioned before on my Ultraman journey. He is the best, one of, if not the best directors in the history of Ultraman. Just an incredible visual artist whose career mostly exists in the world of Ultraman. He did a couple of other movies, but we're going to be celebrating his Ultraman works. He's the most iconic Ultraman director. And one reason we're covering him is that for, people who listen to Japanimation Station, stuff like that, he is without a doubt the biggest influence in the world of Ultraman on one Anno Hideaki and people of his generation, like a Higuchi Shinji. So if you are into your Neon Genesis Evangelions, if you're into your Shin Godzillas and so on and so forth, if you're into your Shin Ultraman, so much of that creative DNA is inspired by the very unique visual stylings of Jisoji Akio. And the reason why we had to wait until I finished watching Ultraman Max is that is the last show he did. He did 2 episodes of Ultraman Max in 2005. Ultraman Max being a very interesting show that brought back lots of old actors and writers and directors for the show. It's like the first kind of almost nostalgia-focused Ultraman that looked back on the series' history. And a big part of that is bringing back Jisoji, who his last episode for that is, I believe, the last thing he directed that released while he was still alive, because it was the year of his death is when his final episode came out. And so I think this is going to be a very, very fun topic. Just to run through specifically what we are covering, we're going to start with something that I added onto this list very recently because I found it on the Internet Archive, and it's fucking incredible. We're going to start with, we'll look at a documentary made in 1966 called Modern Protagonist, The Father of Ultra Q. This is the first project directed by Jisoji Akio connected to Ultraman in any way. It is the thing that got him the big director jobs for the main show, because he basically made a behind-the-scenes documentary about Tsuburaya Eiji, the founder of the studio and the creator of Ultra Q, Ultraman, the special effects director on Godzilla, one of the most important people in the history of Japanese cinema, really. He started working in the 1920s in Japanese cinema. And this documentary is fucking amazing. It is on the Internet Archive. It's got good enough subtitles. It's so good. It is so directed by Jisoji Akio. It's great. So we're going to start with that. Then we are going to do his 6 episodes of Ultraman. That's episode 14, episode 15, episode 22, 23, 34, and 35. As you can see, the structure of those, this is how Ultraman was for a while, is that they had directors did pairs of episodes. So 14, 15, 22, 23, 34, 35. These are, if you don't own the home video, you can find these on like Tubi. You can also just find them all on YouTube. If you just type Ultraman episode 14 into YouTube, it will pop up. So they're easy to find. We're then going to do the 4 episodes he did of Ultra 7, which is episode 8, episode 12, episodes 43, and episode 45. And then we'll do a big time jump because he was out of Ultraman for a long time, was doing other projects. He came back to Ultraman in 1997 with the revival of the franchise with the show Ultraman Tiga, where he did 2 episodes for that show, episode 37 and episode 40. Then he did 1 episode for the sequel show to Tiga, Ultraman Dyna. That's episode 38 of Ultraman Dyna. And then another big jump 7 years to 2005, where they brought him back for, again, this kind of nostalgia-focused Ultraman show, Ultraman Max, where he did episode 22 and then episode 24. And I will say that I was always interested in doing this because I thought that this would be a very interesting podcast to do, is just to focus on the specific director's work through Ultraman, and that as a way for us to cover Ultraman without having to do episodes on all the shows and stuff like that and huge watch loads. That passion to do this episode tripled when I watched episode 24, The Unmarked Town, his last thing he did, which is such an incredible cap. It is a work of the guy reflecting on his whole career and his relationship to this franchise in a way that's amazing. And I was like, we have to do a fucking podcast after I watched that. And I think this is going to be an incredibly fun thing for people who have not seen Ultraman before. I think this will expose you to some of the most fascinating elements of the franchise. One thing I will say, if you are someone who is a total Ultraman newbie, I would recommend watching at least the first episode of each respective show so you can, 1, get introduced to the cast, particularly for Tiga, Dyna, and Max, the more modern shows. I think that's a bit more necessary. But 2, I also think it's good to have context of what does a regular episode of that show look like, so that way when you watch a very much not regular episode and see what the difference is, particularly for Tiga, Dyna, and Max, where he is a much older creator and his quirks have gotten intense. It is fun to see what's a regular 1997 episode of Ultraman look like. Now what does the episode 40 Dream look like, directed by Jisoji Akio? And I think that if you have never seen these shows, I would do the first episode and then I would watch these Jisoji ones just for that additional context. But these are very episodic shows, so you do not need to have all the other context. They're all one and done episodes. You know, as long as you know the cast, I think it will be very easy to enjoy them, even if you're a total newcomer, which, by and large, Jonathan, you are.
Yeah, I've seen Shin Ultraman the movie, and I've seen some of original Ultraman. I've seen the first couple episodes of that before. And I think I watched another Ultraman thing for my Giant Robots class that I was planning at some point. But definitely, yeah, I've not seen any of these episodes, and I'm very excited because I know we've just talked about Jisoji so many times on Japanimation Station, particularly for the Anno connection, because he's very influential to Anno Hideaki. But I'm very excited to see all this, Sean.
Yeah, and I'm just super stoked to have an opportunity to rewatch his episodes, because I have not gone back to Ultraman and Ultra 7 in the maybe like 6 years it's been. Like when I watched those shows, I lived in Colorado still, so it's been a while. So it's been a long time since I've gone back. I'm very excited. All these episodes are burned into my mind because they're all incredible. And I'm very excited that I've been on this Ultraman journey for a very long time. Again, I've finished Ultraman Max. I'm currently watching Ultraman Mebius, which is the 2006 show. This Ultraman train for me is not stopping. And I think it will be a fun time to take this opportunity at the 60th anniversary to look back at the greatest Jesus Christ metaphor that fiction has ever produced, Ultraman.